Welcome to the Create Today podcast. I'm your host, Karen Stanley, certified rapid transformational therapist and hypnotherapist. And my passion is helping women heal from the past and learn how to create the life they love one day at a time. I'm so excited to be here with my mama again. I wanted to get my parents individually, and so they had more time to talk about their growing up and raising a family. I've already mentioned that I'm one of 11, so this incredible woman raised 11 children, and she's
amazing children.
Well, some of us are okay. Some of us are questionable.
Yes, but amazing.
Amazingly questionable. And moved all around the world the entire time. They were in the Air Force and they got moved every 2 to 3 years and finally retired after 27 years in 1989. Okay, so it was right my freshman year of high school. And when we ended up in San Antonio, so they spent a little bit more time in San Antonio before they actually retired. And so I want to start with Lordsburg, because I want to know what it was like in the 40s as a child, some things we just can't even comprehend. At that time, did Pa already have the dairy? It was already up and running? So the Lunt Dairy was already up and running?
Yes.
Yeah. And
he was peddling milk in Lordsburg and a few other places. So he'd go 30 miles back to the dairy with his empty bottles that were rattling in the heavy wire cages, and you've seen them in the milkman coming and putting milk on the doorstep in movies. TV. And that's and the truck wasn't huge, but it was pretty good size, and he delivered to grocery stores as well, and to the school. I don't know just where all he went, but he would go over and get them filled up and bring back the full ones, and they were packed in a big tarp. I don't think he had a refrigerated unit at that time, but he was the milkman. He was also the ice man, and our local doctor thought that was really quite hilarious. A title to be the milkman and the ice man kids. But we were
big deal.
It was a big deal. He was a big deal. He was extremely industrious, worked so hard, and he had the ice plant besides. Then he had a car dealership, not quite like John's. I don't even know how many cars he had, but a few on the lot. And he had big boxes, big metal cages that you could freeze things in, and that was before freezers were in homes. Wow. So people would come and freeze it if they killed a beef, for instance, and we had ranchers around, would come and he had a butcher shop too. So the butcher would butcher the whatever it was, and deer season was another time for freezing. And then put them in those lockers. Well, when people started getting their own freezers at home, then those lockers were stacked way back in a garage, but went out of business. That
didn't need it.
Gone, yes. But the butcher shop was there, and people would bring their chickens in and get their chickens all defeathered and frozen,
wow.
Or just wrapped up and ready to go home.
That's so cool.
But that was a pretty busy spot right there.
It was right off the I-10.
Between Tucson and El Paso. And he would go to bed at night, and the truckers would ring the bell when they wanted ice. They would just stop by there. And sometimes the truckers were overweight, and the weighing station was down 20 miles headed toward Arizona, and they would unload enough that they wouldn't be paying a fine. At one time, it was bananas. One time, it was avocados. But so we remember those. Not a whole lot, but once in a while that happened, and he had a spot on the end of the garage to put them in. But our 4-year-olds, a neighbor kid and Ree, were 4 years old, and they got a bunch of ripe bananas, and they peeled them and squashed them really well from about here to that door, and it had a slide, and they would run a slide on the seat of their pants. That's one of Mama's favorite stories, because she couldn't find Ree, so she went over to Jared's house, and they were coated with bananas. You couldn't even. So you yank all the clothes off and scrape off the bananas, and then to get it off of the floor. But it was very creative, and they had such a good time. And Jared's mom was on bed rest, so she heard them having a wonderful. Yes, she was threatening to abort, and she heard them having a wonderful time and had no idea. But that was connected with the truckers that came through, and he blew ice, a huge. He pulled the 300 pounds of ice and put them in a huge blower. It was noisy, and blow the crushed ice all over with a huge hose all over ducks. He had a load of ducks at one time and a load of lettuce one time, and then refrigeration kind of took care of that eventually, but for years and years. And we always had watermelon there at the plant when they started coming in from the fields, and there was always a nice cold place there, and there were several big kegs of beer there that beer places didn't have a place to put an extra keg of beer. They were big though, but it was just a nice cold place, and if you were hot, you went into the ice room till you got so cold you had to come back out, and it felt so good. But it's kind of an interesting place, and not many people have ever been part of an ice plant. Situation.
And so people would rent space to store their stuff that needed to be refrigerated?
Yes, they paid.
Wow, that's wild.
And when you did a deer season, there were quite a few carcasses hanging in the room that had purple lights. And I can't tell you exactly how that was, but it killed germs. It was a germ killing thing. And that was not so very cold either, but and stored up until Dick, our butcher, would cut them all up, and then they would be picked up or put in the locker there. They were big lockers, kind of an interesting, and nobody else would know, but my garage was full of lockers, and that was back in the early 50s.
Wow. It's hard to imagine that, just not having a freezer. A time where nobody had a freezer.
Yes, and they had ice boxes, literally. And if you wanted 20 pounds of ice, you put the card out and so the iceman was make his rounds. And they didn't call in, as far as I know. You just kind of went around, and you would chip off a chunk just the size they wanted, whatever size would fit in their box. And it was one of those ice boxes that I got in and hid when I was 4. And my mother couldn't find me for a while.
Yeah. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes. But then I've heard the story so many times, it's hard to tell whether, because I don't remember ever being afraid. I just thought it was in a wonderful hiding place. They would never find me. Yes, thank goodness my mother
Someone did.
Yes.
Do you have any idea how long you were gone missing inside that icebox?
Not long at all, because it was but then I was a small child, too.
Yeah.
So, and I wasn't stressed. I was just in a good hiding place. So if even you said 5 minutes, you could probably breathe.
Yeah,
that long. And Mama was out in the garage doing her washing, and that was in the house that was north of the railroad track. And Lordsburg was a railroad track, El Paso to El Paso to Tucson. And she just had a bit of heavenly help and said, go find Willa. And who's going to go open that particular ice box? I don't know how many were out there, but there were a few, because people would trade them in when they got a refrigerator in their house. Wow. But that's kind of a weird thing, too, the Iceman.
Do you remember Granny, your mom opening it and finding you? And do you remember any of that?
Not really, and I may have been pretty well out of it at that point.
You might have been passed out completely.
Possibly. I don't really remember, but it wasn't any kind of painful, and it wasn't panic. I just was
hanging out,
hiding.
Super excited that no one could find you, and then almost died. It's so funny. It's one of our favorite family stories that everybody knows and everybody tells, but I don't think I've ever asked you about it and have you tell it. I wondered what you remember about it.
Nothing really. People were kind of excited, and I couldn't see why, really.
Like what? What's everyone's problem?
People do get excited about things that are not getting excited about.
It's one of your superpowers, I think, is not worrying that much.
It is. It's a gift. you can worry all you want, and if it'll do any good and motivate you to do something, go for it. But generally, don't sweat the small stuff, and most of it's so small that you do what you can and then turn it over to somebody else that can do something with it. Or
Right.
and if the Lord's always on the bigger stuff, but most of it is just day-to-day survival stuff. And
I know. It's amazing. You just don't worry.
No.
Was Granny like that, or was she more of a warrior?
No, Mama wasn't a worrier. She tried to figure out what needed to be done, and would do it. She was a doer. But and she had a whole lot of stuff to deal with. But again, you can't worry about things. It's such a waste.
It's amazing because most people don't know how to turn that off.
That's true. I'm not sure. I never quite figured that out either. Why is it that you get so wrapped up in something that can't really be helped, especially by you?
Yeah.
I guess you could go protest on a campus or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Someone was buying you a tent and giving you food.
Yes,
Anyway,
paying you
anywho,
lots of money.
Do you remember the first day of school?
Not really.
Mm.
No.
What do you
I
remember
didn't
about
go
school?
to kindergarten because Lordsburg didn't have kindergarten.
Oh.
And way back in 46, I don't know if everybody had kindergarten. And it was war years. I was born Pearl Harbor year.
Right.
And so it's a whole different situation. And such a small town, which was, I highly recommend it. Smaller towns, and because the parents, no cell phones, and a lot of party lines, but the parents knew where their kids were because everybody knew your kids.
Yep.
And you didn't go very far anyway, so they did okay without cell phones.
Wow, that's
But
amazing.
but school was great. I liked school and my teacher. So, and friends. I was sociable enough and had some friends, and not really super clingy kinds of friends have to be there, but they were there when I wanted them.
When did you start sewing? Pretty young?
Well, yes, Mama always had the sewing machine out because she was always sewing. She made my wedding dress, not when I was 4, but
Unbelievable.
it's absolutely, yes, it is.
Stunning.
And my formal for my junior and senior prom, and my majorette uniforms, and Easter dresses for her 4 daughters every Easter. And she made gorgeous quilts. But the sewing machine, that's just something was always there. And if you wanted to sew up something, she'd give you some material, and you could make a potholder or something not too complicated.
Yeah, to start.
Yes, but I don't remember any specific creation, and it was so much easier to buy the pattern and the fabric and say, would you please?
Give it to Mom.
Yep, and I'll run the vacuum, and I will fix dinner, and it was a trade-off, and she enjoyed sewing, and she was so much better than I was. But that was the way
amazing.
to get something. If you saw a piece of fabric and a pattern that used to cost $quarter piece, and fabric used to be $1 a yard.
So cheap.
But yes, whole different thing. Well, we didn't have thrift shops, and we did have dress stores in Lordsburg. There were a couple. Well, actually, there were 3 that I can think of that were especially in the whole town. And there were some good stuff, and you could always go to El Paso, or you could go to Silver City, which was only about 30 minutes, I guess, away. Seemed like a long time then. But and that's where we went to scout camp up in Silver City Mountains.
Wow.
Nestled surrounded by mountains. It's a pretty spot. It's desert. It's ranches, but it's still a nice place to grow up.
For the dairy, where were the cows? Where to get the milk?
They do come from cows.
Where were they, though? They weren't in Lordsburg.
No, they were in Duncan.
Duncan is where the big farm, so that's where their dairy was.
Yes, and that's why you had to haul your empties over to where the cows were.
Yeah.
And the whole bottle processing thing.
So, okay, so he was going to Duncan, and then he was making all the rounds to all the homes, and then he'd go back and...
He had somebody else do it eventually as it grew.
Yeah.
And besides, he was very occupied with the ice plant. So
yeah.
That was kind of a side.
He's a serial entrepreneur. And, well, you know, and actually both of our grandparents were. And so
yes.
We're all inclined to have some kind of a business and make some money. And I was selling candy, and I was in elementary school. I'd go buy them for $0.01 and sell them for 2 cents.
Or 2.
Those hot
double your money.
Fireballs. Fireball candy. They were so hot. Everybody loved them. I was like, I didn't care. Walked down to Samsky's and anyway, been entrepreneurs since we were like born too.
How many did you buy at a time?
I don't remember.
Big business.
And where did I even get the money? You must have given it to me, or I must have earned it somehow because I was so young. But yeah, and we graduated to candy bars.
Well, we sold pecans one time, bags of and that was big business.
Pecans.
Bags of pecans.
Where did we have pecans?
We bought them. I don't even know where. It wasn't online, because we didn't have that at that time. Well, at a pecan place, and we told our customers, and it was for costumes for our singing group. Oh. Well, I used to send little girls around with pecans and a singing group, and
who's going to say no?
Besides, we delivered. I don't know if you'd remember that or not, but the older kids would. For a pizza place, we delivered little flyers. You know, it was specials, and
I did that.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, the whole crew went, and at the end, you got some soda and a piece of pizza. After killing yourself for hours. But it was
amazing.
It was a fun thing because we had kids on both sides, and people were home. Well, I don't know. We didn't care if the people were home. We were just put
them on their door.
I think so. Mm-hmm. What was the name of the pizza place? It wasn't a standard.
I don't remember. Oh,
I used to know that.
I used to know that too.
But we did it several times, and that was the reward was pizza and a soda.
I remember that. And I did get some kind of dollars. I had $5 or 10 or something. I remember getting money. And then we went to Target, and I got a shirt, a tank top, and some kind of those long board shorts that were so cool. I was so excited to get them. It's just funny.
With your earnings.
With my, couponing. Let's go couponing. That's what we would call it.
Couponing was the word.
I can't remember the name of the pizza place, so.
I can't remember either. But there's something so more funner for your own money. I earned this money, and when you buy something, and then when you wear it, you remember.
So true.
I did something really important, and I really like these clothes. And
it's so true. And
there weren't thrift shops. We did that later, but back in the day,
no thrift shops.
Man, $5 used to buy something.
Yeah, exactly. I could work for a day's wage. Would buy some shorts and a tank top.
A month of slaving.
Right. I know. I didn't realize. I never knew that there were no thrift shops. So they must have come around. That must not have been a thing until 50s or 60s, maybe. I don't know.
Let's go for 60s, maybe.
Yeah.
And Salvation Army. When did they start? And there would be a big rummage sales, but we didn't have regular yard sales. But the Girl Scouts would have a rummage sale, or a church would have a rummage sale. And that was a good time to pick up things. But as far as
everyone bring their
Goodwill
junk to a certain location.
I don't know when DI opened, but
well, we'll have to look it up.
They're doing well.
Oh, they're everywhere. Yeah, and Goodwill is everywhere too. And yeah, I haven't seen a Salvation Army. I don't think they have any here. I don't even know if they still have them. But I haven't seen one here.
Good thought. I may have made that up.
No, I know they used to have them. We did it. We went to them when I was young, but I don't know if they still have them.
Well, but the yard sales when they had them was fun to do. We went as a group, and everybody got to buy something because they could afford $1 shirt or a skirt or a pair of shoes. Or
I thought it was like a scavenger hunt.
It was a nice Saturday morning adventure.
That's what I did with my kids too. They still love it. Like, there's Saturday morning, let's go to yard sales and get your $5 or whatever. And
once you found some
great
treasure, it kind of propels you to the next one.
Was Granny already a member of the church when you were born, or did she convert later? It was later, right? Mm-hmm. How old were you? Do you remember that?
I do not remember her baptism, and my daughters don't. My sisters don't either.
Oh,
but it was about 50.
So you were 10-ish, 9 or 10.
Yes, but she was a secretary in the primary.
So you went to church this whole time, from the time you were born, and this whole time Granny was never a member.
Right. Only actually, I was several years old, and Mama decided that we needed that experience.
Oh my gosh!
So she said, because her church background was the preacher that came around every 3 months or so, and they'd have the big revival, and the ranchers would come from 5 miles around in their wagons like the old Western days, but that was the hot time, and I guess he took up a collection to get him a bowl of beans until he got to the next, but he was on a circuit of some sort, and exactly how they knew about it, I don't know. But they, horseback, that was church.
Wow, that's wild.
Well, when you live 5 miles apart, or even 10 miles apart, you don't congregate.
I was thinking, everybody had thousands of acres, and so I'm sure there wasn't a church around, and it's not something you did.
They did get together on weekends to dance all night. They'd bring their fiddles and their guitars and their beer, and they did get together, but for church, there wasn't. They must have had some sort of.
Someone must have had a church somewhere.
Prayer once in a while, I don't know.
Wow, so you remember that. You remember going to the church, like saying, okay, we're going to church now, and you went to the church. They had a church building in Lordsburg?
We met in an old house that had been, so it had a big front room, and they took out a few partitions. Then they had a couple of classrooms, and they had a kitchen. Then they had kind of a shed that had been converted into about 4 classrooms so that you had the different ages that were divided up. But it was an old house, and our real brick chapel wasn't dedicated until 1959. That was the year I graduated from high school.
No way.
And that's where we had our dances in that old, and it kind of shook when you bounced around in it. And if someone big was coming from the back, you literally could feel the floor.
Wow.
As he got up.
I wonder when it was built. Did someone just give it to the church or give it to,
That's a good question. I don't know.
Someone must have donated it or
could
abandoned it.
Could have been. But it wasn't condemned. It was, we didn't.
Just empty.
Yes. And the church was built right across from there. And we had a concrete slab that was poured. It was about this big as this room. And we would get our record player out and our records, and the youth would, not in a huge group, but we had dances at night, and we had some lights out there. But that was behind our brick building that's still standing and doing very well.
Do you remember the music that you played or any of your favorite songs? That time, so it was in the mid-50s.
I remember when Elvis took over the whole teen scene.
Wow.
And that was, 58?
I don't know.
Blue Suede Shoes.
Was that it? Blue Suede Shoes is the first Elvis song you heard?
Jailhouse Rock. I can't even remember what was his first biggie.
I have no idea. Probably one of those two.
But my dad liked Strauss waltzes, and we had a record player at home. So we would waltz the night away in our front room that was...
And Pa would dance with you and teach you how to waltz? Or did he? Who were you dancing with?
No, each other, kids, or by ourselves.
Aw.
And he had some other... What else were his music? But Strauss waltzes...
What he loved.
A very big
he would
one.
buy records.
Mm-hmm. His project, he always liked music.
And when you're at these dances in the 50s, you don't remember what was any of the music or any of the songs you especially liked?
We did Red Wing was one of our, which is just an old square dancey country song. Why I remember that, I'm not really sure. I should be able to remember some, but
it wasn't really the rock, like
No.
rock and roll from the 50s. Was that not allowed, or was that?
well, probably just didn't have them. Whoever brought the record player didn't have the.
Yeah, so it's just
later
whatever anybody
on,
had.
in the later 50s, when we would get together at the Elk Club, those moms would. I don't know who brought those records, and we brought some records.
Everyone would just bring their records that they had.
Mark them. I don't remember having a dance.
Buddy
that
Holly or like any of that. I'm trying to think of iconic 50s music, and nothing's coming to me, of course, but or jazz.
you.
Any jazz by then? It was just mostly like country western and old.
We did swing because our bishop was a swinger, and he pretty well taught the teens.
Oh, that'd be a blast.
I couldn't tell you again another specific
So there was some swing music.
name either. Yes, well, Glenn Miller had made his mark, but I don't remember
There you
him
go.
specifically.
Yeah.
Something that we danced to.
Huh.
And you would think there would be more school dances rather than proms, but not really. And I think there was a pretty strong Baptist element in Lordsburg that didn't encourage dancing to begin with. But I think the Methodists thought it was okay, and we had a Church of Christ, and we had the Catholics, and we had a few Mormons, and it was a mix, and we did mix it up. We would go to youth groups in the Methodist one especially. It was a brick place. It's still standing. It's still
Wild.
still the Methodist group.
That's so cool.
So
It's neat that everybody would just get together and have a dance.
Yep. Well, if you didn't, you wouldn't have much of a group.
Have anything to do. Yeah.
Yeah, it had to be togetherness, and it was, and they were very compatible. And we had, it was really probably 80% Mexican. I've heard that percentage many times before, but there wasn't a whole lot of mix between the Mexicans and the
Back then.
Anglos was the terminology. I don't. There wasn't any animosity, but there was a distinct difference there. And as far as I know, the businesses were not run by Mexican businessmen. They were powered by Mexican helpers. Daddy had Louis built our brick patio and our brick walk, and he kept the trucks running, and especially on the car lot he did too. And Louis was always right in the middle of everything, and a number of Mexicans was our workforce, but not our managers. Kind of interesting.
It is interesting. Also, I only depicted in shows that that was never anything like that after I was born. So after the 70s, 80s, everybody's all mixed together. Like, I don't know, like in San Antonio, I mean, I think we might have been minority. I think Caucasians, I mean, maybe not a minority, but I mean, definitely more. I had more Hispanic friends than, I don't know, probably about half and half.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
50-50 was pretty.
Everyone's all just mixed in together. I know it's just weird to think back to a time in our country where there was not anything mixed, and it's bizarre.
It is. Mama's housekeepers were Mexican. Her ironing lady was Mexican, just because. And Opal was our beautician. She was Mexican. Can't think of her last name right now, but the school teachers, I cannot think of a Mexican school teacher either.
Interesting.
And I did 12 years in Lordsburg before I moved right after my senior year.
Yeah. When did you start with the majorette stuff? How did that start? You're in the band first, right?
Yes. And I don't really remember who was the drum major before. Didn't pay much attention. But it's always fascinating to watch a baton twirler. And I had a baton. was never any good at it. You got to work at that one to make
bet.
it look pretty good, and you throw it way up. And at band camp, you have a class, but I was playing French horn at that point. I did some majoretting, maybe. Well, it's also in choir, so it was just kind of a little sideline. But thinking back on it, I was probably the one that could keep the peace with 6 competing females.
Oh.
And I think I was just asked, would you do it? But I don't remember that, so it must not have been very important.
Wow.
So I thought, fine, I can do that.
Did they have a lot of French horn players?
There were 5 of us. And 4 of us, our French horn quartet did very well when we would go to Dimming and the competitions here and there. But our band director was a French horn player, for one thing. But we didn't have any private lessons. Nobody did that, and I certainly didn't practice. But we got a pretty good sound, and Lordsburg was kind of known for their horn quartet.
Wow.
So...
Man,
but
wish you had some recordings. I bet no one ever recorded anything back then.
No.
Sad.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, it was sad. Maybe that's the better.
Just would have loved to have heard it or seen any footage of any of that. Anything you're talking about, there's no footage of it.
And we had dramas in high school, and we had in middle school. We did, and
You would perform in the plays too?
oh yes,
Everyone did everything?
yeah. You just and our honor society. I'm trying to think of what did we ever do that was.
You remember any of the plays that you actually did? You like the names?
Little Women.
You did Little Women. Oh,
Yes,
that's cool.
and we did Arsenic and Lace.
Huh. Were they musicals or just plays?
No,
just
plays. I was Amy, and in Arsenic and Lace, I still don't. I sort of remember the name. It was the girlfriend of the guy who had the ants. And now I can even tell you the story of Arsenic and Lace. But the good old school teachers were there, and they ordered the costumes, and we had parades in the homecoming parade. And I had a little group of majorettes. There must have been almost 20 of them that would come in the back of the plant. At my house, and we would just kind of march around. I didn't know anything to teach them, but we were part of the parade. So we had a few practice marchings and maybe turnings. I don't know.
Twirling?
Well, yeah, they had a baton, and we did some rather impressive nothing with them. But we thought it was great, and the moms thought it was great. Dropped their little kids off, and they were little too.
Oh, really?
Yes, and the whole Main Street, Railroad Avenue of Lordsburg is maybe a whole mile long.
Maybe.
Yes, so we didn't have very far to march, but that was pretty hot stuff to be part of the parade, and the band always played in their uniforms. When I was in 8th grade, was my first band uniform, and they were all hand-me-downs from huge kids. And I can remember all of the taking up for the pants to even make them hang on, and the jacket didn't fit any better, but boy, we looked cool in our band uniforms. And Myrna was in the band, and it was everything is a big deal in a small town like that. So the band certainly was, and I don't know, they had a band parents association. And I don't know when they got the new band uniforms. Don't really remember. But where this first batch came from, maybe Dimming got a new. But that was another thing. The little towns around, we're getting new uniforms. Do you want ours? And we'll take them. Interesting.
Was it for 4th of July? Did you have more than one parade every year? It's usually when they do parades now, but do you remember what the occasions were? Or maybe homecoming? Or did they do a parade for homecoming?
They did. That was the biggie. But I don't think we did in this. I think it was it. I don't think we did anything in the spring. Or
so fun.
That was about it. And some of the kids would come from a few years back, and
oh my gosh,
because the graduating class was probably not bigger than 35. So when you have a homecoming, if you got 1 or 2, but everybody knew everybody, and so it was kind of a. So as long as you're coming back home to Lordsburg, you may as well do it at homecoming. And we did have a big dance then.
Did you have a football team? Or a game? A homecoming game?
Yes.
And that's where you would perform and do the majorette stuff?
Yes.
Your baton twirling?
The football team, I think Lordsburg did pretty well. There were several little towns around, and I couldn't have been less interested in football, except we did a little band show. We marched out and
halftime
around. Yes,
so they've been doing that forever.
And yes,
that's cool.
And we would play a few rah in between, but there were times when Lordsburg did quite well, and the football stadium was right across from my house.
Oh,
so right just across the road, 2nd Street. So we were aware of, the grade school was here, and the next block was the junior high, and then the high school was the next block up, and then the field was in between.
You just walked everywhere. Always walked everywhere. Okay.
Yeah. No, you didn't have to go very far, so that's just what you did. And it was kind of silly to get your car out for a few blocks. You just
cool.
Yes, it was, and for mothers, that saved a little bit of hauling you clear across town or across the state for stuff. But no, we did Girl Scouts. Mama was in Girl Scouts, and so there was a little bit of everything going on. Not nearly like we get involved in Little League, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
No, we didn't have that, and it was just as well. When we wanted to get together, we got together, and the parents were supporting anything that was happening in the school.
Did you sell Girl Scout cookies? When did that start? That
started in the early 40s, I think.
Holy cow.
Before Pearl Harbor, maybe.
Wow.
I'll have to Google that one. But yep, we sold Girl Scout cookies. Wow. And we had enchilada dinners at the cafeteria to raise money for band uniforms was one of, and football equipment. Well, now the sporting equipment, the whole program is so expensive. I don't know how anybody can afford it, but they put you Venmo and send it out to everybody you can think of, and because you need $1,000 for a new something.
Yeah. Brandon's helmet was $400 just for a helmet. Yeah, it was insane. So we were always raising money. We're always doing fundraisers.
Well,
it's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. It's insane. It's completely insane.
It is. But we did.
But the good thing is you donate it. So once they're done with football, you just leave it with them, and then someone else can use it. But you can't reuse it too many years because they've
got to have the right size with
stuff. You can only use it how many years or whatever. But
and then you get a whole new setup for a new helmet.
Yeah,
it's totally
and now you have to
differently and costs $3,000 more.
Well, I think hockey is probably the most expensive sport. Oh, we didn't grow up with that, but.
No,
I have hockey parents friends, and I'm just like I can't even. Every bag is $10,000 worth of junk. It's nuts.
Did you know that Benny M is starting his son Calvin at 3?
Oh my
to learn to ice skate. He said, "Well, the first year they're just kind of learning to skate."
Yeah, that's when they start.
That's the start.
No, I did not know that.
Yes,
crazy. Once you start, you can't stop. So have fun, Ben.
Maybe he'll hate it. Who knows?
Maybe he'll hate it. Who knows?
And you got to try got to try a lot of things and decide what you do like. But yes.
When you were in high school, did you always know you were going to go to BYU, or did you always know you were going to go to college? Was there any question about going to college or not?
My dad loved his college experience. Oh. And he was one of the few that had a college experience in Lordsburg. But he learned about the engineering, the making ice, but I guess the engineering part of it, I don't know.
Learned that in college?
Yes. And he was on the chess club, and he worked in the cafeteria. And I have a ticket to a prom in Flagstaff. Anyway, he was so into college, but then he had to go home and run the dairy during the war because, but he was the one of the family that would be available. But
he was in Flagstaff at college?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
NAU, or is it called something else?
It was called Normal school, Arizona Normal School.
Way. I never knew that.
I don't know when they changed, but he thought it was a great experience, and he would have liked to have gotten. And he played football in high school in Duncan, and but he didn't play. Oh, he was a discus player in Flagstaff, and he saved one grand meet that he wouldn't tell about, but everybody else did. He literally saved the school's.
Won the game and was the star of the show.
He was really quite athletic. And
I can see that.
Football thing.
He's so strong, so
Well,
big. He wasn't big like football player big. He was just so strong, so tall and
he was not.
tough.
He had to be when you
had
look
to
at
be.
all of what they did.
So he was in the middle of college. He did a couple of years.
Yes,
And
he may have
then
finished
the war
his
started.
third year.
Did they have a bunch of people in the family that had to go enlist and then leave, or why did he need to come home because the war started?
I don't even know if his brothers went into the service. Wayne was a whole lot younger. Vern may have applied but couldn't make in. Ed, I don't remember. There was several boys, but
And they never had a draft for World War II? Because why didn't he would have been drafted. He would have been prime age.
Except if you are the one that is running your family business, like a dairy, that is it's not like a retail shop or something.
Right.
But because you are running the Lunt Dairy, somebody needs to, and so you're it. So they didn't take.
He was exempt. But there was a draft, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there was.
Yes.
So he wow.
Yeah, Mama's brothers went.
Went.
But one of them did not, and I can't remember just why, but that was Uncle Ralph that was in 3 years in a Japanese.
Yeah. He was a prisoner of war.
Yes, and Andy never left California. He was in the Navy, but he was in the office. He was in office something or other. I can't remember exactly what. But Ralph knows what war was like.
Is he still alive?
No. But he lived.
Granny still has one more sibling alive, no? No, they're all gone. Okay.
All gone.
I thought there was one still on the farm, on the ranch, but
Nancy hung on
forever and
for a
ever.
long time, she was the youngest. She was the twin that survived.
Yeah, that survived. Wow.
Yep. No, the war years kept Daddy busy. I don't think he even, but maybe, I don't think there was a medical thing, his eyes or something. You hear about that too. Even though you're desperate for soldiers, there was something that, a medical something that could
You can have an exemption, yeah.
could exempt you.
Wow, that's so cool. And so when did the talk about BYU specifically start?
I don't
remember.
I knew there were a few people in the ward graduated high school and went off to BYU, and then that was cool. And Myrna went off to BYU.
Oh, she went first.
2 years, 3 years before, actually. And that was just, and I wanted a nursing degree, and I could have got that out of El Paso at a hospital, or I could have gone to Tucson. You can get nursing degrees from these medical places, but no, that was a great place to go. So. And my older sister had gone, and nobody really talked about it much. But yes, college was the thing to do.
You just did. Okay, cool.
Daddy thought so.
Why nursing? Did you know from way before that you really want to do nursing, or you just?
No, I just.
Have you ever even
decided.
seen a hospital?
I was born in a hospital, and it's still standing.
Wow.
Brick building. When you get these brick buildings built right,
Right.
And we don't have tornadoes, so yes. No, never really thought about it. I just thought, and I liked school, so that's a nice place to meet people.
Being a nurse specifically, you don't remember a specific reason why you chose it?
No, not any real. Actually, I started out in family something or other, but for the first year, and then I decided. I don't know why I decided. It wasn't a great decision, but that was what I wanted to do.
Well, I think I've told you this before, but that was very confusing as a young child to hear that you went to school for nursing and you always were nursing a baby. And I thought, wow, you went to school for that? You have a degree in nursing? Good job, because you're an expert.
I do, but I never graduated from college.
From college,
I finished this 3 years, and then we were off to Washington.
Off to Washington, yeah, wow.
And Mama went to beauty school, and her sister went to beauty school in Tucson, and she graduated, top of her class, never worked as a beautician, but she was always doing somebody's hair.
That's cool.
So it was kind of an interesting education for the two of them, but Pa was on top of his game in the ice business.
Yeah, all of his businesses. And you never thought you would actually work. You didn't intend to work outside the home. You intended to have a family and stay home with them? Or did
or hospital work appealed to me, or go beyond and be a doctor. No real, I just kind of took care of today and didn't know. But I always had the finances. My tuition would have been paid easily, and I knew that, and there was no really discussion. I just knew that I could go to school all I wanted to.
Oh, I was a baller.
But what?
He was a baller, as they would say. He was just very successful. That's like a slang. That's what they would call him. He was a big deal. It's so cool because from Dad's perspective, you had a rich dad. You had a rich family. You came from a rich family compared to him.
Compared to a lot of people. And I never felt, looking back, I never really felt better than anybody ever. I always had nice clothes, but Mama always made most of
making them.
Yes. And I knew that there were some very poor people, but my house was always nice, and I always felt totally covered for the security thing. Yes,
I was going to take care of it.
Yeah,
that's amazing. He was amazing.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, and so you take your French horn and you sign up. You're doing nursing, but you're also doing the band. Do you remember meeting Dad for the first time?
He was in the band, and he was the first clarinet. We went on a band trip, so you kind of mix more then usually you just get your horn out, you do your thing, you put it away, you go run off to your next class, and there's not a whole lot of camaraderie there. I knew who he was. He was also... that's a good idea.
Thank you. Stupid allergies.
No, I just knew he was there, and we were involved in the band trips, so you saw people.
And then what was your first date? He had to have come up to ask you out.
He would call me from his house or someplace else and say, hey, can I come over in about 30 minutes?
Oh.
And we went to a movie. We went to, he was, had his own dance band, so he was involved in that. So when you're playing for a dance band, you don't, it's kind of a tricky date, but we had a few of those.
Where you would just go, and then he would perform, and then...
And then later, well, I did dance with other people, but I would be there. And he would come over for dinner, and he ate at the cafeteria when I was in the dorm eating cafeteria, and then we moved to Heritage Halls, and we'd invite guys over.
So fun.
And we did go to California looking for a job. That was a 2-day trip, 3.
You and Dad did?
Mm-hmm. And a couple of other couples.
Oh.
That were looking for summer jobs.
Oh, summer jobs.
Yes. Knott's Berry Farm and I was just along for the ride, and it was nice. And I hadn't been to California in a while. And my first trip to California that I can think of was to an ice convention. And Daddy took me and Myrna and little Greet, and we had the greatest time in a fantastic hotel. And that's where the convention was. And
what city was that?
L.A.
Oh, it was Los Angeles. That's when Los Angeles was a dream. It was so cool.
That was when the temple was built, and the palm trees were anchored, and the landscaping was coming together. And I think it was dedicated maybe in 60, maybe 59. Wow. Not sure, but.
And you didn't get a summer job?
Benny was the one that was looking. I was car hopping for A&W Root Beer.
Back in Lordsburg, or did you stay in Provo?
That was Las Cruces.
Oh, back in Las Cruces. Oh, so they had already moved to Las Cruces. Yeah, okay.
And I could walk to A&W Root Beer, and they were great people. And
did you roller skate or just walk?
No, thank goodness.
No skating, okay.
No, nobody was. But they did have frosted mugs, mind you. No. They put them in the freezer so that you had a coat of frost. So you filled them up. And that was very big deal back in the 50s. I don't know if they do that now, but
I doubt it.
And it was good root beer and fries and stuff. And
a drive-in situation?
It
like
was.
Sonic,
It was
so
all
they drive in it, and then you bring it out to their car, and everybody eats in their car?
We just, pardon?
Cool. Everybody eats in their car?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I don't even, they just hook the tray on. And
yeah.
How did you know when they were through eating?
And what'd you do with your tray when you were done? Maybe you just took it with you and you just gave them their food.
Or maybe you're just watching, and because you had the front and somebody else had the sides, and never thought about that.
So you guys were dating already when you went to California, and he was looking for a job?
Yes, we were dating.
And then did he get a job in California? Where did he go? You went back to Las Cruces.
Mm-hmm. He was working on some construction.
And then were you writing? Did you talk? What was the communication that whole summer when you're? Because you weren't engaged.
Not that summer. The next summer we were. And I may have dropped a year in there. I can't remember right now, but
doesn't matter.
But when I first moved to Las Cruces, the end of my senior year, when the plant was built there, I was at I was car hopping, but not at A&W. And then A&W was closer to my house. So the next summer, that just worked out fine. And I was working as a student nurse. The summer, we were engaged. They needed somebody to stay with a fellow that had an infarction, and it killed him on my watch. But my job was just to keep an eye on him and yell if he needed something. And so when he starts doubling up and breathing horribly noisy, that's when you yell and then you get out of there. Well, so that the
doctor come in or the regular
pros
nurse
take care of it. And he didn't make it, but that was my job. Was I car hopping as well? And watching him at night? Not really sure. But that was my only nursing job
experience.
Officially, yeah.
Before you started nursing babies for 30 years.
Well, so that was the end of my second year of college. And then the end of my third, we were married my third year, and Ben's fifth year.
Yeah.
And then that's when we went off to the Air Force.
Right.
Just before Mike was born.
What did you think about, didn't you guys have a kind of a break, or you were kind of dating other people for a while before he actually came back and proposed? What did you think about all that?
If it was going to work out, it was going to work out. And again, that's my
just
attitude about
whatever.
Things.
If he comes back, whatever. If he doesn't, whatever.
Well, my roommates thought he was so cute in his ROTC uniform.
He was so
and
cute.
he was so cute with his big
so
brown eyes.
adorable.
So they said, well, if you want little boys with big brown eyes, what are you waiting for?
Oh, funny.
And
you were discussing whether or not you should marry Dad, or just
in a
talking about
offhanded way.
Yeah, yeah.
Nothing really serious, but I hadn't been asked. But then I knew if he did ask me.
You knew you would say yes.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'm good for another year of school. you know, things.
Otherwise, whatever. You're going to miss out, then you're going to miss out, Benny.
Well, you never know what'll come along.
Man.
But yeah, I knew that was a good thing.
Lots of boys with little, and you had 8 girls. Do we all have, I think we all have brown eyes, right? No.
Sally's
Do we have any blue
brown.
eyes? I think Sally has blue
Sally's
eyes.
not brown. And Mike's not brown-eyed either.
That's right.
I'm not even sure who isn't.
Oh, now I'm going to take inventory after this. Who has blue eyes? I forgot. Huh.
No, Mike is not brown.
No.
Bruce certainly is.
Yes.
And when people would see them together, they didn't really believe they were brothers.
They don't look anything alike.
No, those two. And then Sally and Bruce don't look like anything alike either. But,
Wow. And then off to DC. Did I tell you that I got your dress that you made when you were pregnant with Mike? I don't know if I told you that I ended up with it.
Spotted, isn't it? Black, has black spots.
Polka dots.
And Macy tried it on. How come?
Yes.
How come Macy? You were at Macy's house?
Because it's the only person in your family that was as teeny as you were when you were pregnant and 20. So yeah, so Macy,
I saw
she's
you sent me
6.
a picture.
No, she's 15. No, she's 14. She's teeny. I still can't believe how small you were, especially being pregnant. Yeah, I sent you that picture, but I sent it off to the dry cleaners because they're gonna clean it and then preserve it so it won't. What is it called? Disintegrate
Deteriorate.
over the years.
What do they call that? A ceiling. They do that with wedding dresses. And
Yeah, they do. But so I asked them if they could do that with this dress because I just wanted it to be preserved for ever. And you can take it out and wear it at some point and then just put that stuff back on it and then have someone else seal it back up. But
do they suck the air out of it? Is it that kind of a pet?
Yes.
Well,
so then it won't get moths or whatever. I just think it's the coolest thing. You did make a lot of stuff.
I liked to sew. I never was any good, and still aren't. But it's a creative kind of thing when it works out right.
It is.
But yes, I didn't make that dress, and don't remember buying anything for clothes.
You just made them.
Yeah, that's just kind of what you did, and you spent the weekend doing that. I made some pajamas for Benny. I can still see the fabric, the light brown.
Did your mom and dad meet Dad before you got married? Did he ever come over and meet the dad? Ask? Did he ask
came
Pa?
to Las Cruces.
He did to ask him for your hand in marriage.
I'm not sure exactly how that went.
I'll ask him next. I'll ask him tomorrow.
That's when he met Granny and Pa.
Okay, so he did meet them once.
Yes.
And then did you call home from college to tell?
I did.
Mom, you're getting engaged?
I'm engaged.
What did she say?
They had not met him.
At that point.
But if I'd met the one I want to marry.
They were excited?
Hallelujah. Yeah.
They were all, yeah, so fun.
It was a good thing. That was your choice. And
yeah. Oh, man. So fun. So I have a bunch of questions from all of your children, and they're all on my phone, so I'm going to look at them really quick. It's so great. Where is it? Oh, no, it's the wrong text thread. But also, Dad has a lot of notes and questions that he wants me to ask you. So we'll start here, and I'll kind of go back and forth. Trip to Disneyland with Benny and
Haz and the other dude.
Jenkins?
Haz Marvel and Marv Jenkins.
Marv Jenkins, yeah. So tell that story. What was that about?
That was when we went looking for a job.
And you went to Disneyland.
Nobody had any money. I don't know how we even got
did you get into Disneyland?
But I don't even remember the rides.
No?
I've been to Disneyland before.
You had?
And Knott's Berry Farm, I don't really remember much about that either. It was just a day, and can't remember.
Do you remember Kristen's rat?
Rhoda the rodent. Yes. Somebody told me you put them in the freezer and that is a painless way to die, and it doesn't take much to freeze a rat.
How did you know it was time to put him in the freezer?
I think he was very unsteady, and they only lived 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, so you could just tell he was deteriorated. And
then do you remember what happened after Kristen came home?
did she rescue him out of the freezer? Well, yeah, and then I'm the one that got to take him down to the vet to get him euthanized.
He used a hairdryer to warm him up. They were totally traumatized and crying.
He was a night and I don't know if anybody knew, but a nice pet. And he'd just crawl all over and get on her neck, and
Loved her.
Crawl. He was a nice. Well, she loves any pet.
Yeah.
And where did she get him? I don't remember.
I don't know.
Well,
But it was like going to be $8 or something to put him down at the vet. So you eventually caved. You don't remember any of that whole scene that they were causing and the hairdryer and...
no, I knew
like,
they were
what?
rescuing the rat.
Did you tell them that where it was? Did they ask where the rat was?
Don't remember exactly.
You scarred them for life. And you don't remember any of it.
You know what? There was a whole lot of
best part.
stuff going on at our house, and a rat in the freezer was not necessarily my priority.
Not
the
at
moment.
all a priority ever.
No, it was awful to go to the vet and deliberately kill him. I could have put him in the freezer, and it really is a painless way to die.
It is. You just fall asleep.
Yeah. So, and I could go about my business, but to drop him off at the vet and intentionally inject him, that was worse.
Yeah.
For me, of course, I got the job.
Then you had to drive there, and it's so funny.
Did we have a burial?
I don't know. Now we're gonna have to ask Kristen. One of these days we've got to have. Well, we won't. There's not enough time. But if we had all of us, I mean, then we could say, "How do you remember it? How do you remember it?" Oh my gosh.
Well, it sounds to me like she should have deserved at that point a major burial, but maybe that didn't happen.
Well, we sure get a lot of laughs out of that story when Kristen and Rachel tell it.
Well, I think it kind of gets embellished a little bit
Probably.
over the years.
Probably. Gets funnier and funnier.
And we had kitties, and we had dogs, and Liz was raising rabbits, and we had chickens. Do you remember the chickens in Virginia?
Oh, yeah.
I did.
Oh, yeah.
Way down. Oh, that was a great place to live.
Well, it was, but
We always had
going
great
in there
places
to
live.
feed the chickens they always stunk so bad.
Oh, well, and get the eggs.
Yes, it was not my favorite, but I did it probably every day. I remember doing it all the time, going to
I
collect
remember
beans and
anybody
bringing in the feed and
complaining, but they
you
had
know,
to be
just
fed.
did it. Yeah,
Change the water.
yeah, they stink though.
Yes.
We did have a lot of eggs. Back to when you were training to be a nurse. Julie wants you to tell the story of singing "I Am a Child of God" to the little girl.
Ooh, that she was only about 8, and as a student nurse, you just go do whatever they tell you to do, and I
This was in Provo in a high school.
Provo, Provo,
Hospital.
Utah Valley Hospital was, and I couldn't even walk there now.
Everything looks
But,
different.
and I don't remember her name, but she had major abdominal surgery, and when they did exploratory for cancer, you were really cut open, and she just had so much cancer that they just set her up again. But now she's worse off than she was, technically, and her folks couldn't handle it, and so she was so ill that she didn't have a whole lot to say or do, but so I just wrapped my arms around her and sang to her for the 30 minutes or whatever I was told, and they didn't tell me anything to do. They just said, this is the background. She didn't have any visitors. So do your thing. I really don't remember what I was told to do, but that was an interesting assignment. Again, there wasn't something I really could do, but for the moment, that was the best of. And they had a kid in there that he was 19 or 20 that, he was impossible. He'd been in a wreck, and he had all kinds of stuff to complain about, arms and legs and traction. But I got him all the time because the rest of the nurses didn't want him. He was complaining about everything, and I tried to make him happy. I didn't succeed. Again, if you can't, you can't. But you dump them on the students.
Yeah, exactly. Dump them on the
he
students.
was not the choicest of the.
So that little girl's parents were so traumatized they didn't even come
they
see
just
her?
Couldn't handle it, and they knew she wasn't going to live.
Oh, my
I don't know
gosh.
exactly, and I don't know if it was the only child or I don't know that kind of background, but she wasn't around very long. Yeah. It wasn't like I came back the second time. And that's part of the hospital. You make it sometimes, and sometimes you don't. And there's some good patients and some not so good patients, and yet they can't help it. And
so miserable.
Yep. But I did like nursing. Again, you do what you can, and there were some things that you could do that would really make a difference to them, and some of them appreciated, and not everybody did. And
right.
But it was a good place to be.
Well, because you get to serve others, and you're brilliant at that. Jenny wanted to know, was it intentional that we ate all of our school fundraising candy? Because we would tell you that it was time to pay them, and you just write us a check, even though I don't think we collected that much money.
No, I didn't see a whole lot of effort.
You knew we were just we were eating half of it at least, but you didn't seem to care. You just write the check and send us off to school.
I guess that was my contribution, and I figured you all enjoyed the. I don't even remember what kind of candy you were selling.
It changed. It was different every time. A lot of times it was like those $1 chocolate bars. Okay. Before we got Dad involved and started selling candy from the base. It's illegal, so we're not allowed to talk about that anymore. So funny. It's just, she goes, is that was intentional that you just wrote a check and no questions asked, or were you just tired?
That was probably the fastest, smoothest thing to do.
What do you need? Here, take the whole checkbook.
And was it going to the music department, or was it going? If it
always.
Okay,
probably.
music.
Yeah, probably to the choir. You didn't sing in a choir? They didn't have a choir in high school, or you just did band?
I did. I'd sing in college.
Oh, you did choir and
yes, I was in all-state. I passed the all-state audition of all 4 years for band and chorus. So I went to band because that was.
Oh, because you're at the same time. You had to choose one.
You could choose at that point, and they were pretty desperate. I wouldn't have made either one of them because I wasn't any good at all. But the choir, we had choir every day. Some of these kids have choir once a week or something, and band every day. And then we practiced our marching routine after school, and then we were in a play and. But yes, I was in choir.
That's right. It's so fun. Let's see. Then we started talking about something else on this text thread.
I can imagine. I followed a few of them.
I know. I can't even keep track of all of our text threads. Some of them have without you guys. Some of them have you guys. Some of them are just sisters. Some of them all the 11 kids. Some of them have TJ on them. So it's like... It's so funny. No one knows.
So you check them once in a while.
You just check them once in a while, yeah. Liz wants to know, what are all the reasons Liz is your favorite child?
Oh, too many to list. Yeah, just too many. And I hope everybody felt that
Liz,
way.
you're so amazing.
Yes, absolutely.
It's all a competition.
And everybody claims the title, but if it makes you happy.
We all do. If I write a memoir, which I think I will, Well, I know I will at some point. I'm going to call it my favorite number 6. So that's how Mom would get around it for people who aren't in the family. If there's anyone not in our family actually listening to this, so that's how we were the favorite. We were the favorite number 6.
Whatever
I'm
the
number
number.
6. So, Lizzie, yeah, you're the favorite number 8.
Absolutely. Always was.
What's the best advice you got from your mom?
Remember, do your best. I think would come to the top of the list, no matter what I was doing.
Just do your best.
Yes, and I don't remember any particular.
She was just. What did you learn from just watching her? She was just such an incredible human being.
She was. In her
she
garden.
worked so hard, and she was a master gardener.
Yes, she was. And I think about where the flowers were in the various, and I didn't live in very many places,
right?
Too, in Lordsburg. But she had iris along the little walkway on the west side of the house, and in the north, she had a big bed of lilies out by the clothesline. I remember when the choo-choos were replaced by the big diesel engines because the choo-choos would spit smoke all over her white laundry, and I can hear her complaining about
No
and
way.
that was before we had a close dryer. Yes, and we were that close to the railroad. And the hobos would hop off of the train when it was stopped for whatever they stopped for, or they were just changing, and Mama fed them. And those were the years, and they were just trying to get back to their family or off to a job or something. But
find work,
the
probably.
lilies, and there was a trumpet vine over the back arch going over toward the plant. There was honeysuckle on the front trellis, and there was pyracantha. I can see the flowers in that yard, and Mama had a big bed of petunias. Over by the playroom.
Did you help her in the garden, or is that her own
not really.
project? Yeah,
that was her thing, and I hope I helped a little bit hauling off weeds or pulling a few weeds, but not really invited. That was kind of her and she was very particular about anything.
Yeah,
was being done.
Everything was perfect in her house.
But the Mrs. Jones, the nursery lady, and it's a very informal nursery. She just happened to have ordered plants, but Mama would call her, or vice versa, and say, "What have you got? Have you got pansies, or you've got whatever?" And they just kind of worked together. So if Pearl wanted a particular
Type
flower,
of flower.
yeah, Mrs.
She
Jones
would order
get
it.
it for. Oh yeah, and people would come by and see Pearl's flowers. She was well known for her flowers. And have you seen Pearl's petunias, or have you seen her? Whatever. But it was she did that very well. And I think getting out early by herself was kind of the way to start the day.
Brilliant.
And in Las Cruces, she did the same.
She did.
Always up to and you remember her plants.
Roses.
Yes, the whole row, rhododendrons, and her
stunning
daisies, and she had some iris and a little bit of everything. And a few months before she died, and she knew she had about maybe a 6-month knowing that she definitely was not going to kick this cancer. She came home with a plant. She's feeling pretty decent. Came home with a plant, not very big. And I said, and she had all kinds of plants in that back sunroom, all around the edge. And I said, "Why did you pick this one up?" And she said, "Because I don't have that one." It was just a thing with her. And she would stop by the nursery, and somebody was checking with the nursery people saying, "Where should I plant this?" And the nursery person said, "Oh, you can't grow that here in Las Cruces." And so after a little bit later, she said, "If you put that on the south side in a nice sunny spot, it will be just fine." and it needs lots of water or whatever. She knew what it was and what it would take it to keep it alive in Las Cruces, and she just educate. Well, you garden enough, you finally figure out what works and what doesn't, and basically, and she had a real feel for that. She also did her quilts that were just absolutely gorgeous, and no, she didn't want me to help her with that either.
I bet. But they're so perfect.
Yes.
My prized possessions. Probably the only thing I really have that matters. I just realized a couple months ago that they weren't in the safe. I was like, if anything should be in the safe, it should be my blanket, because if the whole house burns down, I really don't care. If everyone's out of the house, I don't care about anything except for my blanket that Granny made.
Do you know the name of it?
Does she name them?
Her patterns. Are her commercially named. Some of them, I don't even know what yours is. But some of them are commercial quilting patterns. And when did you get it? When you married Kevin?
Yep. And then I have 1 or 2 baby blankets. So I got baby blankets for both of my kids too. So I have 3 total.
And I tried to give away.
Oh my gosh.
That was.
I was like, man, that looks familiar. Oh my gosh. And Leah's like, that's my blanket. You're giving it to Taylor.
Well, yeah, it was a gorgeous blanket.
It is a gorgeous blanket. I was like, Taylor.
And I got it out of your closet because you pulled out a whole bunch of bedding out of your closet. Well, it was.
And I was moving and I was stuffing and in a hurry and I'm over it all, I'm sure. And I didn't notice that was one of the things that went into the
timing on my part.
Man, you saved my bacon.
Sorry.
No, you saved my blanket.
Well,
sorry, Taylor. Can I have that back? It's mine. And I really want it. And I didn't realize that Mom had it. Sorry. Oh my gosh.
Had you even missed it? Probably not.
No, because I have 2 kind of chests where I keep the most important things for each of them. So I got a Brandon big box and a Leah big box. So I wasn't looking for it thinking that it was in there. Because I just wanted it, all the things that I really wanted to keep, because you can't keep everything. I have it.
No.
You can't. And so
when they're boxed, they're boxed. And
it's just in my, then I just have it for whenever anybody wants to look at it, or their little cute little things that I hang on to,
Well, I'm glad that she got her.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad she was there. I knew it looked familiar, but I didn't even realize that was Leah's until
It's been quite a while since I had it.
Yeah, long time. But that's not really that uncommon in you and me. I give stuff away, you take it, you hang on to it until I want it again. And I say, hey, Mom, do you have such and such? Yeah, I have yours from 3 years ago. You can have it back.
And you ended up with my maternity dress. I don't know how that worked, but
Lizzie had it at the house, and she asked if anybody would like it. And I said, yes, if no one else wants it, I want it.
How she got it.
I don't know. You guys to give it to her at one point.
I have no idea. I've given away a number of things to the girls just because.
Yeah. It's so cool. It's so cool that you made something.
Macy can wear it.
I know, 1961, and none of us are teeny. That's what's so weird. You are such a teeny itty bitty woman, and none of us are tall or small. Not even close.
Genetics, there's some things you
just, I don't know. It's weird.
Don't know.
His dad's not that big either. I mean, especially when you guys got married, he's like 5'9", $130, maybe less than that. 120, Dad? You got married? Yeah. Just a beanpole. It's just funny. I guess he's 5'10", but you know what I mean. Or 11, I think. I think 11
Almost
was his.
6.
He topped out at 5'11", I think. What were some of the most special times that you shared with Dad? I know it's hard to.
One thing that was so cool that not everybody would have that opportunity, but we would take the Winnebago, and he'd take stakes. I remember one time we went to a castle grounds, and it was quite windy, quite cold, but we were away from the mob. Mike was holding down the fort, sort of, whatever. And
wow.
that was in Germany. And it was just a time to get away and have a meal. And we could go out to eat at other places, but no one cooks a steak like your dad does.
Right.
And the Winnebago was such a nice getaway anyway. So we would cook outside and then come in the Winnebago to love that Winnebago.
That's
And
so fun.
have a steak dinner. So that was just and it didn't take very long. We didn't have to travel very far. And
Right.
So all of this comes together.
Oh, fun.
And it was always, after TDYs, that was always really special to wherever we were to be back.
Because he'd be gone for quite long periods of time
well,
sometimes?
usually not more than a week, but
Oh,
once
okay.
in a while, yes.
Yeah.
But there was a whole lot of goings on, and it was just nice to have somebody else to help me
Yeah.
survive.
Just get a break. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I remember that one special, and it kind of depends on how your day was going. If it was a little bit rough, it was always nice to have him come home. But to have the steaks, I don't know that we planned it especially. And Mike was old enough to stay with the kids. We were on the 3rd floor, and the laundry was in the basement. That's memorable.
Oh, my gosh.
The manager of the laundry room would come down because and we had assigned times, mind you.
Oh.
And we had a new baby. And so he would come down, and because people had complained because the dryers were going at 9 o'clock at night. And he was down there at 8:30. So as they were coming out of the washer, but they had lines, and they were towels and sheets. And so he wanted to be sure that I wasn't going to be using the dryer.
Past 9 because it was a sound disruption?
Yes, it makes noise. But I was hanging them on the line so that, that took care of the dryer thing.
Yeah.
But he was just kind of watching. I guess he knew and we had several washers at one time, so that was nice. You do it all at once, but coming down from the 3rd floor to the basement and then hauling it all back up, and that's what you did with your groceries too. Only the groceries weren't in the basement; they were out in the Winnebago. But that Winnebago just saved my life. There was always extra clothes, extra food in there. So on Sundays, if somebody needed a break, they could go out to the Winnebago. And,
That's cool.
it was. And when they played the 3rd floor down, they could pop in and go to the bathroom.
Right. You'd have to walk all the way up to go.
Yes. There was a big sandbox in Germany. And by the time they got to the 3rd floor, most of the sand had been kicked off. So that was kind of a blessing. You didn't get the first layer as they came in from the sandbox. But
Yeah. That's so funny.
But that was a really special time. And well, Christmases and birthdays, and he always made days special. Can't think of anyone.
Funny. Is there anything that you, looking back, or you wish you would have done differently? Like, I would have done this differently on anything, just in any category. Anything you can think of?
I don't regret not finishing college. It was a great experience, and so I'm trying to think of possibilities.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't have changed that. I wouldn't ever change who I married, and any of the kids that came along. The whole traveling thing was great over the years. It just always was. We always had a great place to live. To really change it, is one thing that was hard was having one-on-one time.
Yeah.
With that many. And when you did the errand kids, there were moments when you had to grab with one-on-one.
1 hour in an entire week.
Well, there were some short times. I tried to grab those, and the whole business of being together was awesome. You learned a whole lot of things, but one-on-one to really get the feel of a kid, that was hard. But I worked at that one, and if I was taking you someplace in a car, that was a nice time to talk to a kid. Then after you got your license,
see us again.
no. After your jobs, everybody was doing jobs and coming home at different times, and So you
in rehearsals.
yes, and
You're always gone.
always. And Marilyn was doing drama, and
Yeah.
but catching you to one-on-one was nothing I could change, though. But that was really important, and we did it as best we could.
Right. It wasn't very often. I remember distinctly only a couple times that we were in the car alone with nobody else in it.
Seldom.
Very, very, like, I can only remember maybe on one hand. We were always at everybody. As soon as I could drive, then I was the driver.
And somebody's always wanting to get the shotgun position.
Everyone always arguing about it.
Want to kill everybody before you even get started.
Seriously. I don't know how you didn't kill us all. And I don't think we even could argue about it because it was just always the oldest. And you just said, forget it. Whoever's oldest, I don't want to hear about it anymore.
The end.
If you're not the oldest, you're not sitting up there. So get over it. That was smart. Let's see. Dating. Benny asked you if you wanted to get serious. Do you remember that?
Not precisely. Things just kind of grow, but I don't remember a specific. Well, but that makes sense. Are you in for this, or I'm ready to move on?
Yeah.
But I don't remember really. I just it was a good idea, and
so you said yes. I guess
I said yes. It does seem, yeah.
So
but I was in. I knew a good thing when I saw it.
Yeah.
And there were some other decisions to be made, but that was more important than anything else at that point. As far as more school, not so.
It's so fun. And then you went to the Dixie Ball.
Yes, we did.
What is that?
Athenians. It was in a park, and I used to know the name of it, and they hung Florida moss from the branches, the lower branches. They ordered a big box of it, evidently. And I still have the little vase as a souvenir from the Dixie Ball.
Oh, cool.
And yes, that was just a memorable thing. And I don't really remember dancing especially, but you dance at balls, I guess. And I remember I think I wore the rhinestone skirt that Genesee
remember that.
With.
Oh, she
with
did?
With the velvet top. Yes.
Velvet.
It came
Black.
from Aunt Bertie. Mm-hmm. Yes, black velvet. And I wore it after Mike was born.
Aunt Bertie made it?
No. But she had it. And she would pass close down to Myrna especially. And then I got the hand-me-downs from Myrna. Oh, and it needed, I was going to put a new top on it, and didn't really want to do it. And Genesee was dancing. I don't know if she ever wore it, but
I'm going to have to ask her now.
But for rhinestones all over a black taffeta skirt, it was a pretty sharp outfit from
So
Aunt
cool.
Bertie. And Aunt Bertie did that with shoes and nylons, and because Aunt Bertie was working as a beautician and didn't have any children, but we adored her, and kind of like having an Aunt Karen for us.
Aw.
She brought us 2 ducks at Easter time one time.
Oh.
Yeah, it lasted quite a while, surprisingly.
Oh.
But she was always bringing us something.
Did Aunt Bertie have her own children?
None.
Oh, she never had children.
She worked as a beautician, and Uncle Jack was a barber. And they were a cool pair. Interesting. And they were bowlers.
They chose not to have children, or she wasn't able to?
Not really sure.
Probably not able to, if you had to guess.
I think Jack's first wife insisted that he have a vasectomy. And where that story comes from, I'm not really sure. And I guess reversal that's very expensive, and they didn't have much money. And as a barber and a beautician, they just didn't. They had a lot of friends. And you could just tell that. And Aunt Bertie's snowbirds that came down to Tucson from wherever would give her gifts all the time. She was just a favorite of them. And so that's where some of the clothes came from. And well, she liked clothes anyway. Maybe there wasn't a connection there, but she had a lot of friends.
And she was older than your mom? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, just a couple years? I mean, they're pretty much the same age. Couple?
Yeah, what is that? About 2 years, I think.
Oh, just 2. Okay.
I think Ralph is 2 years younger, Bertie's 2 years older, and now I can tell you.
Yeah, so around the same.
But she had fallen in the fireplace as a kid, and her hand was really deformed.
Oh.
And now they do such miraculous things with burns and scars. And but her bowling, and the reason I mention this is that her bowling ball had to be specially made to fit her hand.
No way.
She was a good bowler. And that was one thing that they really enjoyed doing. Jack and Bertie went bowling.
No way.
And we knew that. And we went down to the bowling alley with them a few times. But Tucson wasn't very far away from Lordsburg. And we got together with Aunt Bertie and Aunt Nanny. Aunt Nanny was in Douglas. So that was our closest connection with relatives. And we had...
And she could do hair with her.
Yes.
Her hair
yes.
like that.
She
just
do anything.
never let it stop her.
No, but that scar tissue was...
Yeah. Wow, I didn't know that part. I never heard that about Aunt Bertie. That's so cool.
It's been fixed now.
Yeah, I know.
Like a whole lot of other things, once you go through the veil, you get stuff like that repaired.
Yeah, it's so cool. Other than Dad's brown eyes, what else did you like about him? What else impressed upon you that he was going to be the best or
a good
great
dad
husband?
and a good provider? He certainly had a get it done attitude. He was running for some office for BYU. And that took his own dance band, and he liked me. So that's kind of that's swaying in the right direction. And he just was, you just know, good, honest, hardworking people, and that he would take care of you forever. And
didn't you have? You must have gotten asked out all the time. Other people that were interested. I mean, you must have had other men interested in you.
I wasn't all that busy with the dating. I had some. Had all I wanted. If there was something special going on, I usually had a date.
I bet.
Well, in the ward, you meet people. In the band, you meet people. But not flooded with go out with me's.
That surprises me. That's probably not even true. You're probably just not remembering it. You're a hot mama.
Not really.
Yes, you were. You're absolutely stunning. Well, it's not were, you are. Just look at all those pictures of you when I didn't know you then. And it's just like, wow, that was my mom. Just so beautiful. And your skirt and your glasses and your hair all perfect. It's magical. It's so pretty. It's like, oh, you're just such a baby, 18, 19 years old or whatever when you met him. And then I have a 19-year-old now. Or she's, 18 and a half. It's mind-blowing that you were making marriage decisions at the same age as my daughter is now.
Well,
it's nuts.
Yep. I was 20 and a half.
Yeah.
So, and that's how I remember how old Mike is. At 20 years and
plus a half.
That's a start for the rest of the how old everybody is.
I only remember the numbers. 61 is when you married, 62 Mike.
Good
and
for
64
you.
Bruce. And then I know how, I know everybody's years. Otherwise I wouldn't never remember it. I wouldn't even remember how old I am if I don't remember the years.
Too many numbers sometimes.
Yeah. It's so funny. Let's see. How about in concert and marching band with Dad? Oh, he just wanted you to tell stories from being in band. So in concert, and then you did marching band with Dad from 59, well, before you got married, but were you dating You remember doing those things and when you were dating, or was that all kind of before?
Kind of knew him before, and I don't know why anybody's signed up for marching band.
You didn't like it?
Oh, yeah, I did.
Oh, okay.
But right now,
Well, especially in Arizona when it's 120 degrees outside.
well, yes.
They're still out there practicing.
Yes, they do. But in Utah, they can't do that.
That's true.
Too cold. And no, it was interesting to meet these people, and I enjoyed the music, and but it was really time consuming. But it was it was enjoyable. But I'm just thinking now maybe that's one thing I would change is not so much time for marching band. But I enjoyed the whole band experience and didn't kill myself at making good grades necessarily. But I enjoyed the whole experience. So, but I didn't see the clarinet section when I was out marching. You march exactly where you're supposed to do, and you do it, and then you go home, and it was fun. It was good exercise. Liked the people inside. It was good gig.
Yeah, that's so funny. You must have gone to a lot of dances. Well, even when Dad wasn't performing, they must have had a bunch of dances at BYU. They still do.
They did and do.
Did you go with Dad when he wasn't performing, or was he always performing?
A few times.
A few times.
And they had matinee dances. I don't know if they still do that, but that's just a good thing for kids to do.
Seriously.
Get in a few dances in an hour or so, and
they don't do that anymore. But that would be really fun.
Do they not on campus? I don't even.
They had some dances, but they were never during the day. I think I went to a couple.
Huh. Well, and don't have to
also
know
an
anybody.
Eternity ago. Now, it was 30 years ago.
It's been a while. Well, yeah.
It's a long time.
We went to some dances. Can't think of anything really specifically. And getting dressed up, and I always enjoyed dancing. And your dad was a good dancer and good company. And
you were mostly doing swing?
Yes.
And like the two-step? Slow and then two-step? Kind of. Yeah. Because we were dancing at Jenna's wedding. And I wasn't sure if it was swing, if that's specific, if like technically what it is when we were dancing with Dad. And I've seen you. You always have been dancing our whole lives.
Yes, that was
technically swing, right? Yeah,
that's
what I thought. So fun.
They mix hip hop into some of that. Well, and that's some of it's just literally jumping around. So,
yes, but you two have always been dancing, so it's technically swing, right? Yeah, it's so fun. It's fun to watch you guys dance, and you still do it to this day.
Very slowly.
I know.
Yeah, that has changed a bit.
Did you ever do any sports? You ever a sport you were interested in?
In high school, I played for PE. You played baseball, and I enjoyed tennis. We didn't have a tennis team, but we'd go bat the balls around because the tennis court was right across the street. Football, I played powder puff one year because they do that 1 year, and I had no idea what I was doing. So that was kind of and I've always thought it was pointless to pile on the top of anybody.
Seriously.
Run. I was a good runner. We didn't really have we didn't have a track necessarily. I don't even remember a track meet ever for the guys or the girls, and definitely not for the girls. And basketball, I dated a guy that was hot shot on the basketball team, but that's so you run back and forth and throw the ball in the basket. And, not really too excited about that one either. Yeah, I guess I'm the athlete. We did watch, what was it called? Gillette had a TV show called, I should be able to sing you that jingle too. To look sharp every time you shave, to be sharp and beyond the ball, to look sharp. There are a whole lot of sharps in there. The cleanest, safest shave of all. But that was kind of the big, we didn't have good TV at all in the 50s at all because TV wasn't all that great or nearly as sophisticated, of course, but we were surrounded by mountains. Lordsburg is. And so we were the last ones to get, Phoenix had a little bit of and where did I go with that? So that was one of the big highlights, and there was so much snow on this show. And yes, I had a friend down the street that invited me down before we got our TV, and a good snowstorm. But he had a stack of comic books that was at least a foot high, 10 cents a piece at the drugstore. And I didn't ever buy those, but there was Betty and Veronica, and I don't know, Donald Duck. I don't even know what they were now, but I would borrow comic books from him. What were some of the others? But he had such a stack, but he did watch the Gillette sports show.
So Gillette, the razor company, was the sponsor of, and what was the sports show?
I'm not sure. And there was so much snow, you could already tell anyway. Boxing, maybe.
No.
Yeah, it was terrible reception.
You couldn't even see it.
But that's what we did. Come on down and watch TV.
Yeah.
The snowstorm.
Yeah. Did you guys have a TV at that point, or he?
Not just then.
So you didn't have one, and he did.
Yes. But we had one in the later 50s. It was a Magnavox, and it had improved a bit, but not worth. I remember Liberace, and I remember the Hit Parade. So Snooky Lanson, and I don't even remember who else the singers were, but the hot ones on the market, and that's what they did. The ones that were making the Hit Parade, and that was a big deal.
The latest songs.
Yes,
That's who made the show, and then they would come. Would they perform on the show?
They were performed by a set of singers that did the show, and not the performers that made it a hit. So you didn't get the latest performers, but I couldn't even tell you now any of the songs. So again, it was so-so, and Liberace was very big. I remember him as far as music. You ever watched Liberace?
I don't think I ever have. I mean, obviously I know who he is, but I don't think I've ever seen him. But maybe I just forgot.
Flashy jackets and a big smile and curly hair, and man, he could make those fingers run up and down that keyboard. He must have had a Liberace show.
I think he did.
And that was probably, for some reason, that seems like it was clearer than any that I could remember. But I wasn't ever hooked on TV. I just had other things I'd rather do.
Yeah.
But he was, and as far as movies on the TV, we went to movies because we had a theater in Lordsburg called The Palace. Cost us 10 cents to go. And
I'm surprised Pa didn't open it himself.
Well,
he had all the other businesses.
This was the Allens that had the theater.
Wow.
And then in the late 50s, they built a new one, the Coronado, on 2nd Street. And it was a quarter. It was a little fancier.
Do you remember the first movie you saw there? Or at the first one, Allens?
Stop You're Killing Me. It was just a goofy thing that it had a mob element and the legal beagles that are trying to straighten things out, and a corpse that kept showing up in somebody's closet. Nonsense. I couldn't tell you anything about it, but we thought it was great. And
it was a comedy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. However, they got if the storyline. I don't know.
We got to try to look it up. Watch it.
It may be that I would like to.
Yeah, amazing. That. I bet I can find it.
Stop You're Killing Me. And who was in it? There was Abbott and Costello.
Oh, you saw them?
Yes, on the big screen back in the 50s.
It's so exciting.
I wonder when they were really at their peak of performance, and that may have been it. Maybe
Probably
54, 55.
If they were making movies in there. That's when they made it big.
There was Superman. There was Roy Rogers and
Roy Rogers.
Yes. And Gene Autry, he sang, and Roy Rogers sang, and he was married to Dell Evans. Dale Evans, and she's the one that wrote "How Do I Know the Bible Tells Me So." I don't know if you've ever heard that song.
Yes.
And she was singing with a band, a big band, but then she was pulled into his, and he made a number of movies.
Oh, yeah.
Probably, I don't know, I would
Dozens.
guess 50 maybe.
I'm sure.
I don't know, but he really got into that groove. But that was our entertainment to go out to the movies.
And they probably only have one movie at a time, right?
Yes.
Gosh.
And it would run for maybe 3 days.
Oh.
And we even had an outdoor theater.
A drive-in?
A drive-in. Boy, that's funny. I've come up with a name of that. I don't remember watching anything particularly in a drive-in movie either, but that was kind of exciting on a nice evening to go out together and sit in your car. And
wish we had drive-ins still. I think there is one here somewhere.
there's a few. Once in a while you will
Yeah.
see one, but they have to be really wind protected. A good windstorm will take them out.
Oh,
right. I can't think of, I don't think they had one in Nutrio, so that's a windy place.
Mm,
But they
so
did have
windy.
a theater. We never went to the theater in Nutrio, so. Yeah, unless it was really something super big. And The Wizard of Oz, I did not see that till after I graduated. That was in El Paso.
Wow.
And we had, the circus would come to El Paso maybe once a year. Barnum and Bailey, the biggie, and all kinds of aerial artists and animals and the tigers and the elephants. And we had tickets for that several times. And that was El Paso. And then we had little carnivals with the rides. And they would come to Lordsburg and set up their popcorn stands and their rides. And we would spend a night or two there as a family. We went all together. That was hot stuff in Lordsburg. Entertainment. Now I don't know where I started with that, but.
We started with sports in your incredible sports career.
That's
cool.
Right, Gillette. Well,
Gillette, yeah. So that makes sense. They would sponsor the whole show for advertising, and I'd never heard that specific jingle, but they've had a couple. I bet. I mean, almost everybody had jingles back then.
Yes, and one of them was when the Snap Top cans came on the market. That was a very big thing. And mommy, 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 don't forget the Super Cola and the other super cough drinks. They're in cap top cans. No more and no deposit. No more empties in the closet. All the kids are super soft drink cans. And Halo and the shampoo. Halo, everybody. Is that still on the market?
I don't think so.
Can't even
I don't know. It could be. I've never heard of it.
We used Luster Cream, but Halo was a big one then. But yeah, the jingles, and I would remember them more than the product, of course. And
Totally.
that's supposed to work
The
that
point,
way.
yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, that's funny. So you didn't have to worry about the empties because before that it was just bottles, and then you had to save them, and then you had to bring them back.
Pop top cans. And I Googled that once, and I can't remember the year exactly, but that was a big change.
Well, we were watching the show Fargo, the series, and one season is in the 50s. And so they've rounded up all the cars from the 50s, and they were using that pop top can that you're talking about. Somehow they recreated all of this crap from the 50s. I don't know how they get all this stuff, but it was so cool. Yeah.
Is that a Western?
I mean, the show is
ranch?
It's kind of violent. I mean, there's a lot of crimes, and it's a lot of crimes and cops, and you're trying to figure out this, this crime family, and then it's wild. It's nuts. Okay. But I love watching things that were in the 50s. It's like, wow, they have hundreds of cars from the 50s. And I don't even know how they got all those. And then everything down to the clothes that all of them are wearing, and how do they recreate those apartments and those downtown areas, and like everything. They recreate all the storefronts. You know, everybody had just you needed sewing machines, you go to the sewing machine store. And you need a fishing bait, you go to you know what I mean? It's like there was no Walmarts. Not yet.
It's interesting. Yes.
Everybody had their own store. Everybody was a, you know, Walmart came in and wiped everybody out, which, you know, not a big fan, but whatever. It is what it is. Let's see. Gosh, there's so many.
And Lizzie's question was, how long have I always been your favorite?
Yeah. What are all of the reasons why Lizzie's your favorite?
Okay.
Mike was asking, what is your philosophy on raising children and why? You think you have a philosophy? Seemed like you were just born to be a mom. It seemed so easy. I know it wasn't easy, but it just seemed like you were so good at it. Like you always knew what to do.
I think there's a certain amount of intuition.
Yeah.
A whole lot of prayer.
Yeah.
And just figuring it out because they're so different and how to fill any needs.
That's pretty good philosophy.
Was blessed with such great kids.
You were.
So really, yes, especially
number 6.
What's
your name again?
They were also different and wanted to do different things. And how do you make it happen? But there's always a way. Where there's a Willa, there's a way. That was my running for student council president.
I love that.
You haven't heard that one?
I don't think I remember that. Where there's a Willa, there's a way.
And I've always felt that way.
Oh.
I can do it. I'm one of those can-dos. And if you can't, move on to something else. Go do something that you can do.
It's not the end of the world.
Basically, yeah. That my philosophy is love them, hope they feel that love, and work at it, and prayer.
We did. We always knew you had our back, no matter what crazy crap we were doing.
I hope so.
Or what we wanted to do. I remember one time I wanted something stupid you don't like spending money on stupid stuff, but I saw Michael Jackson's picture in a magazine, and I remember it was, I think, $1.
Oh.
And I just wanted it so bad. And I didn't even know why. I just loved Michael Jackson. I had just gotten my very first record with Thriller, and it was one of the little ones, which I can't remember, 45s. Yeah. And I had my first record ever. And it was just so, I don't know why. I just wanted the stupid magazine. And I didn't think you were going to buy it for me, but I asked, and you said yes. And so I had Michael Jackson pictures on my wall.
Oh, wow.
And I was just so thrilled to have this probably like a dumb teeny bopper magazine, back in a million years ago. But I was so excited. And then I also remember you took me dress shopping. And you remember that black and white gingham dress that every single person wore for 20 years after you bought it for me.
So much mileage.
Everyone loved it. Julie wore it forever. I'm the one.
Remember who's done
Yes, it was for a dance. I think it was homecoming or something. I thought it was the prettiest dress.
It fit you so well.
It was perfect, but it was $100. It was so much money. That's like $10,000 now. Like, I couldn't believe, but you said, yeah, you just loved it, and I looked beautiful in it, and I felt beautiful in it, and you said, yeah, we can get it. I don't know if you robbed a bank that day or what, but
I remember, I think that my 3 little girls were off doing disaster to that store.
Oh, probably.
At the same time, and I took all 3. Well, I had to. I had all 3 of them because I did daycare for those 2 extras. But it was just perfect. I must have had some money.
I didn't remember them being there with us.
Well, they probably weren't for that long. But if that was the time, and I think it was that time that the store manager came back with the 3 of them.
Oh,
and by then it was maybe that's why I was so willing to get that dress and get out of there.
Hurry, let's go, wrap it up.
Yes.
Oh, that worked out great for me.
Yes, we got $500 worth out of it. It was just a really nice dress. And I had some piano money.
Yeah, that's true.
When we went in 86, no, what were you doing in 86?
I was 11.
Okay, that was exactly when. Kristen was tiny.
Yeah.
It was April. And you were in the spelling bee.
Oh.
And
misspelled juror. I'll never forget that. Juror.
Oh, juror.
And I didn't know what he was talking about. I didn't know the word. That's how I lost. Juror. I'll never forget that. And I was like, what? Can you repeat it?
Juror.
Yeah.
Why would you give that word to a kid?
Such a
I
hard
thought I
word.
remembered
Anyway.
it. I didn't remember juror, but I remember that I was
That's how I lost.
way back. Yeah, you
Darn
didn't even
it.
get a second chance.
No,
that was your
I
first
didn't.
chance around.
Was out.
So I was going to go. So we were going to go to, what was the burger place?
Fuddruckers.
Yes. And I had 2 piano checks, but there wasn't enough money in the bank for me to cash them.
Oh.
You had to have that much money.
For them to give you the cash.
Yes. So we went home and did something else, but I remember changing Kristen way back up as a tiny,
Newborn.
and then not having the money, and you could have they could have at least given you a decent word.
Seriously, I actually was a really good speller.
Yes, that's
I
why you got
just
there.
that one. That's all I had. The only chance I had. Oh well.
Oh well,
Doesn't matter.
Way it goes.
But the girl who was runner up, her name was also Karen, but it was Keren. She was Hispanic, and it was Keren. And I remember because she was Jehovah's Witness, and she never celebrated any birthdays. It was the first person that I had ever known or remembered that she was Jehovah's Witness. And I was like, what do you mean you didn't get any birthdays? And we would try to do birthdays. So we don't do birthdays. I'm like, what do you mean you don't do birthdays? How do you not do birthdays? And I just, when you first meet somebody who they don't do any celebrating. Well, my mom gives me presents on other times. Anyway, she was a better speller than me. And she also kind of just flibbed when we were doing the school one. And she was really super smart. And she should have won, and she should have been the one up there. But she flubbed on something, and I can't remember what she flubbed on, so that I won the school spelling bee, and that's why I was going to the city one, and then flubbed mine. But
is that 6th grade?
I think it was 5th. I'm pretty sure. I'm almost positive it was 5th. My last year of Aiden school. No, it was in San Antonio. It was right by the church. What was that school right by the church? Oh shoot! What am I thinking of? William? No, what was it called? Adams Hill Elementary.
Adams Hill.
Yeah. That was my only year at Adams Hill.
Well, that's where she was born, and she was a newborn.
Yes, newborn there in Lakeland. Gosh.
Yeah, I remember that of not because that was a time to celebrate, and I never did that.
Right.
And so we stopped by the bank, Kelly Bank, and they said, no, you can't cash. And so I said, okay, well, stick them in the account, and we'll go do something
bummer
else. But we did go to the dollar store, and everybody got something.
We did.
Then we'd go upstairs, build a fort out of those folded up futons, and have a great
We sure did. That was fun. Yeah, we loved it. It didn't matter. But because you were so frugal and because we never had any nickels to rub together, usually that's probably the reason why these things stick out is when you got something special that I thought for sure the answer was going to be no.
But you got that dress.
That dress and that magazine.
Oh,
and you must have bought that record, or maybe I had money, but I remember getting that record that was my first record.
You babysat.
I did babysit some. Yeah, but I was young. I didn't really start babysitting, so I was, maybe 10.
And Brian was watching McMaster's cats when we tripped the alarm.
Oh, no.
And the people called. I said, sorry, I'm over here to feed the cat. I have no idea
what the code is.
My neighbor's out of town and we're feeding their cat. They didn't send anybody to pick me up.
Oh, my gosh.
But it was
so secure.
Yeah. So if
kind of
that's the
security is
line.
that?
If you ever get caught,
I don't know what the code is. I'm over here feeding the cat.
Feeding the cat.
All right, criminals. That's the only thing you need to do. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. Can't believe. Well, they probably called the owner and then they said yes, she's feeding my cat. I'm hoping that's what
without
happened.
cell phones though, and if you're out of pocket, if you're not home, you're not home.
That's true.
That was a long time ago. We fed the cat.
Did Dad wanted to take you home early on a date? Remember this story? Or you wanted to go home early, or he wanted to go home early? Oh, well, Dad's going to have to tell us that story later.
I guess so.
He wanted me to ask you that. No, don't be sorry. He'll tell you your memories in just a minute.
It's funny, really, what you do remember and what you don't.
It is.
Some of that you think would be more important, but...
It is weird.
And I wasn't even aware of Michael Jackson. I mean, did you tape them up all over your wall?
Yes. As many as they had in that dumb magazine. Whatever pictures they had, they were on my wall after that. I mean, Michael Jackson for us is just like Elvis Presley for you. I mean, he completely changed everything, and nobody had no one had ever seen anything like that. And he just had one smash hit after another, and his music was unbelievable. No one had done anything like that before. So he's just like Elvis in that. I wish I would have been alive when Elvis came out.
Well, he was something else, and there's plenty of documentaries and movies about him too.
Yeah, I know.
And fake Elvises all over the place.
All over Vegas. It's so funny. Why do you, speaking of not really caring, I mean, you have this intense, it's just part of your DNA where you just really don't worry. But Mike is saying you just don't care what other people think. Where does that come from, do you think?
I was born with that.
Just from the very beginning.
Yes. But then I always had all my needs met. I wasn't a needy kid to begin with.
Yeah.
But I always, and I think wardrobe may be one of the biggest things for kids to be concerned about.
Oh.
You want to look nice. And I always had that. That was not ever a problem. I liked my wardrobe, and I had decent shoes. And
do you remember liking being dressed up and looking pretty?
Yes.
Is that important? Okay.
Yes. But I wasn't ever comparing myself to anybody else. And there were some people that went to El Paso, for instance, on shopping sprees, and Connie Young always had the latest, greatest. And I thought it was very nice, but there wasn't any envy there.
Didn't bother you?
I didn't care, no. I liked what I had and got what I needed, and so when you feel that covered,
yeah, you're just nothing really else mattered to you. Was anybody ever unkind to you? Do you remember being worried about? Because you also don't worry about what anybody else thinks about you. You just do your thing, which I think that's what I think every human being tries to get to someday, and some people never even arrive. They're so worried and so concerned.
Not there. I certainly was not as good as anybody else in any other. I had no reason to feel like I was better than anybody else, and so that wasn't that wasn't part of it. Actually, I bottom of the totem pole on lots of other, like my sporting activities, for instance.
Your athletic,
It's my
incredible athleticism.
I was a good runner. But what do you do with that? I was also good at playing jacks, so I was very good at that.
Oh, that's what I should get. We can play jacks someday.
Have you ever tried it?
Yeah. Oh, we had them growing up. We always had them. We were always playing on the ground. Little jacks in the ball, right?
Yes.
Try to grab as many as you can.
Yes, and some of them are much bigger and plastic and colorful, and so they tried to. But it was a very big deal then.
Oh.
But I was good at that. I was good at swinging and seesawing on the playground. And I don't even think they have seesaws anymore because kids get their feet underneath them or something.
Yeah.
Or are thrown off at the top or bounce so hard. But
I don't think they have a single item from a playground in the 50s that now they're all gone. Too many people died, I'm sure.
Well, and I could swing, and I just always felt comfortable at what I was doing, and I was reasonably good at most things. But then if I wasn't, I didn't care.
You didn't.
Trying to think of what was I really bad at that I wanted to be good at. I can't even think of
Just
something.
didn't really worry about it. Don't remember anybody giving you a hard time or anybody being mean. Do you remember even being sad, or when you did feel sad, what did you do?
When Mama was in the hospital, I was very aware that she was very, very sick. And of course, you don't tell your kids that your mom's not going to come back, but everybody knew she wasn't going to survive the last trip.
What did Pa say about it? What did he say?
I don't think there was anything really said.
They just were there.
Pa would so hard then. But your kids just are going to know. And I remember knowing that. And there were so many people that were helping us and being so kind to us. And if there isn't something really wrong, and Mama wasn't there, so yes,
wrong.
That was really a rough time, but I don't remember getting bogged down in it. It was, I just knew that it was bad news.
And that's when the doctor realized she had celiac. That's the same hospital visit? Or was it after that?
Scott and White in Texas was the doctor that figured out.
Finally figured out what it was.
And she went on the records. And that's what these hospitals do, these that have the interns coming up. And I don't remember how long she was there, but it seemed like a very long
eternity.
Time. Yes.
And you were how old?
I was in 5th grade, so 11-ish.
Yeah.
And but I kind of ran the place.
Yeah, I bet.
Myrna wasn't that kind of bossy person, and
you were the bossiest.
Well, I was the boss.
Well, I guess we know where that comes from.
And she is
a
dear, but she is not bossy. And she's not about to be bossed around either. So,
So that's when Sam was born? Or was he a little kid?
It was after Sam was
After he was born, yeah.
That was before Sam. I'd have to figure that one. Yes, it was definitely before Sam. Sorry. Something else crossed my mind about, was it Sam or Ree that said they were big kids before they realized that I wasn't the oldest because I was the bossiest.
Funny.
Which one was it? And they just figured
that you were the oldest.
Yeah, they came to me.
Funny.
But I was kind of more involved in their life than Myrna was. And Myrna may have been low thyroid for who knows how long. But that was good. But when Mama was gone,
You ran the show at age 11? Man.
And Myrna was not an early person. Early. She was a night owl. She would stay, and she was not an early riser. And I was. By 7 o'clock, I was ready to do something. And of course, we shared a bedroom. That was awesome.
Did she stay up reading? What did she do?
Well, she was a reader. What else was she doing? Probably in high school, if she was reading. I don't even know now.
So cool.
When I was dead, it was time to go. But I'd been up earlier than she had. That kind of
So you were tired and she wasn't.
Yes, and even now she's a night owl. I think that's DNA, and shouldn't have to share a bedroom with some goofball who wants to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Right. Bruce said, ask her about reading Where the Red Fern Grows.
Did I read that to you?
Remember that?
We went to
Obviously,
a movie,
he does.
too. It was the rec center that sponsored this movie. Down at the rec center, they set up the chairs. Or did we watch it in a church building? But then I did read it. We had it at one time.
Yeah.
That was not an easy one to get through. I can't get through Heidi anymore.
No way.
Then ever. And there's been a few. That's one of the few that couldn't handle. And now I can even tell you they both died, and then a red fern grew up wherever they'd planted this dog.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I there's a few that I would like to read again, and that's I don't even remember the story of Old Yeller, but there was some of these.
Same
classic.
thing, basically. So he gets the rabies, and they have to shoot him.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
But some of
They're
those
sad.
books,
Yeah,
and
you'd
he
always start
remembers
crying. He
that.
remembers that.
Ugh, couldn't get through that one.
No way. Well, and The Littlest Angel, you couldn't get through.
No,
The
still
best
can't.
Christmas pageant ever, you couldn't get through.
Oh,
I think you cried every time you read to us. Well, because you picked good books.
Well,
Remember The Red Fern Grows? You were still reading it to us.
most of our reading was done literally in front of a fireplace. And not everybody had a fireplace in San Antonio, but on a cold night, and we had plenty of those, everybody had a pillow. If you wanted a blanket, get a blanket. Half of you went to sleep. And sometimes I went to sleep before anybody else did, and that was kind of the end of that one. But but I enjoyed those books so much. And so I wanted to share that and wanted you to all appreciate a good story. So, but it's more for my own personal enjoyment, because I enjoy a good book.
Same.
But then there are some that are,
Hard to read.
yeah, tearjerkers.
Well, I'm so glad that you did, because that was norm. That
Yes.
was our norm, and that is what we do as a family. And then, therefore, I think all of us, every single one of us, read to our kids. And we did exactly that, because that was modeled to us. That's what you do. What do you mean you don't read to your kids? Why would you not read to your kids? We all do that. I mean, I don't read to Leah and Brandon anymore, but always, every single day, every night. And so that's such a special memory and such an amazing way to get books inside of kids and spend time with your kids and spend time with mom when she's sitting down and not moving, because you never stop moving.
Well, I enjoy a fire, and I think that's part that it has, because I associated with having everybody around, and it was evening, and you were relaxed, and it was time to call it a day.
Yes.
But this was kind of the cap. And in front of that fireplace, and I have a real love for fireplaces, and I know that's why.
We all do now too. And I wonder, what are you taught? What are you caught? You know, one of my mentors says everything is taught or caught. You either catch it because you saw it, somebody do it, or it was taught to you. And it's much easier to teach when you're just leading by example, is the whole point. And taught or caught is just an easy way to remember it, but that's what we did. You build fires, you sit down, you relax at the end of the day, you read every night, and then I bet as adults, I bet most of us read a lot at night too. You just keep doing it.
It's a good way to unwind.
Yeah, we learn to love to read, love books, love sitting on the floor with our kids. And so it's so important. I just so grateful that you did that with us. What would you want your descendants to know about you?
That I loved life, and I had every reason to do so. Be the best you can be. Take advantage of what comes your way, and sometimes it's not very good, but you make the best of it. And
You always did.
Yeah,
But you always felt grateful. Like you just said that, when not in a different way of saying it. I always had I loved life, and I had great reasons to love life. And you had all kinds of challenges and hardships, but you never even really talk about them.
and I loved their dad. And if we're talking about kids or grandparents or on down the line, that's kind of a novel concept, loving your spouse
Mm.
And then you pass that on to your kids.
So true. I remember when I was, I don't know, when my best friend was married to Zebra. You remember the Zebras?
Yes.
Well, they had an argument, and I thought they were getting a divorce. I'd never seen you guys argue. Oh, no. Are your parents? And I asked her, are your parents getting a divorce? They're like, what are you talking about? They're just arguing. Oh,
We fight all the time.
it's so funny to me. But yeah, you did. And we
You
saw
don't
that.
happen to know what happened to any of the zebras.
You know, the best thing is that she finally had a daughter. She got married when she was about almost 40. She didn't get Meredith. And her name is Willa.
Oh,
Isn't that cool?
where is she?
Long Beach. She lives in California. Isn't that amazing?
And that's her only child.
Only child. And she married someone with, I think, 2 boys. She has 2 stepkids.
Okay.
Because that was his second marriage. And so I did see her, gosh, it must have been 10 years. Oh, it was when Blake graduated from high school, and we were all going on a cruise that left out of Long Beach. And so I actually saw her 10 years ago. Yeah. So she hadn't met him yet. She was still single. And then right after that, she met her husband, and they got married, and they have Willa, and I think she's about 8. Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
It's the coolest.
Very cool.
Yeah. But then I haven't asked her about her family in a long time, so I don't know.
Ah.
So cool.
Well, they weren't very far away, and we were kind of stuck out there with not a whole lot of kids. Very available, but boy, when Rachel was born, she brought over the nicest dinner, and that's taking
much
dinner
work.
to a new mom, and there were so many of us, is a huge thing
Yeah.
for a new mom, and it was. I don't even remember what I was. I remember the salad more than anything else. I don't remember what else it was, but it was huge. And she just brought it in and spread it out on our big table on Aiden Road, and and we were friends.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how that I saw her a whole lot. But
No, probably not.
But that was such a gift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love Meredith. Oh, so let's hear about your dad proposing. Did you know he was going to do it? Was he trying to be secretive?
He borrowed a ring of mine once. My class ring, and for a size to get the right size.
So he told the truth about that. He wasn't trying to be sneaky.
No,
He said, "I need to go get your size."
No, he didn't tell me it was anything about it, but he did borrow, and that's how he got the size. I wasn't thinking anything about that. I guess he was wearing it on his pinky.
Sneaky.
Yeah, I did not know. It had nothing to do with me, but we were just kind of hanging out and went down to the botany pond, and he asked me what I thought about marriage. That's a good thing. And what about being married to me? But the actual wording was, or being a housewife. And I said yes. I can't remember exactly how he said that now, but yes, I would be liked the idea. That I used to know what I said to exactly, but so then he brought the ring out, and it was absolutely gorgeous. Of course, I lost that diamond twice and found it twice, so that's telling you
nuts
something about the value of that. And so it was decided, let's get married.
You got married like 3 months later or something. It was right away
at the end of the summer, and that was in the spring before school was out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, September 7th. Okay, so then you went to Grand Canyon for your honeymoon.
Mm-hmm.
Did you talk about, or did he plan the whole thing, or was that a surprise, or did you plan it together?
I had been to Grand Canyon, and I love it. It's a gorgeous place. And in September, that's an awesome place. And we would be headed back up to school. They're being married in Arizona.
So it was about halfway in between.
Sort of, yeah. So that sounded great. No, he did all of the planning on that.
Where did you stay? Was there a hotel back then?
El Tovar is still there.
No way.
It is. And I have a big brass bell from Korea that has El Tovar.
Tovar.
And I think it's just a name rather than actual meaning, like a Navajo name or something. But it was just a beautiful time of the year, and it was not far to drive up from Mesa to get there in the evening, and the timing was nice. And
So you drove up on your wedding day?
yes, it was.
So all of your wedding stuff was during the day? It wasn't, you didn't have an evening reception or anything?
Did we go up the next morning?
Remember it being nighttime when you came out of your reception, or were you done?
Morning, and I think we had a reception, gathering of friends at Guthrie's house.
Oh,
The night before, and then after our wedding, we drove on up to the Grand Canyon.
it wasn't the same house that he lived in when he died, right? Did he already have that place all the way? It's right here by my house now, but it's out in the middle of nowhere
not
back then.
far. Oh, it
But
was.
it's right down the street.
Yes, that's the same house.
Lindsay, that same house, that's
Same
when your
house.
reception party was. Wow. I wonder what year he built that house. And it was way out in the middle of nowhere back then. There was nothing out here.
Well, he's got a lot of acreage to go with it, too.
He does.
I can't remember how many, but
I know, 15 or 20 or something.
he did well with his investing and building.
He did.
And as
brilliant.
a school teacher with the 6 kids and the cabin up in Strawberry.
Yeah.
And yes, that was very nice of Aunt Wanda. I think I'm getting this story straight because Sally also had a reception there, a gathering of family in the same house.
That's
Do you
right.
remember that?
Yep. That's right.
No, but that's where we did too. This very
I didn't
same
know
house,
that.
unless I'm lying,
So
which
cool.
is quite possible.
So cool. And then was there a reason why you picked September 8th? Or I said September 7th before, but it's actually 8th. 7th is Grace's birthday. So now I always get them back confused now that she was born on the 7th.
And we needed to do it before school started again, and we needed the summer to get some more money.
Yeah.
And I was car hopping, and he was working in a construction project. So it just worked out. Do it before school starts. And
So then yeah, to go
no
back up
reason to
school.
wait. I mean, if you're going to get married and you've made that decision, then
Yeah.
And we had his dad had a house be able to tell you the address. So we had a place to live, which was great. It was a rental house
In Provo.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow. So you get engaged and then you break for the summer. You didn't even live in the same place. He was back in Mesa and you were back in New Mexico. Mm-hmm. That whole time, you didn't see him at all for the entire summer.
He came down briefly Saturday night.
That's crazy.
And went back home on Sunday. And I saw him in Farmington, too, once. I caught a bus and went up to Farmington.
Oh, my gosh.
And
Your entire engagement, you saw each other twice? Mm-hmm. Oh, my gosh.
And phone calls were expensive. And
So you didn't do those, I bet?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. It's crazy.
I ordered the announcements and left his folks' name off of it. Never caught that at all.
Oh, it was a mistake?
Yeah. I just didn't. Son of Mr. and Mrs. W.W. Knudsen. Everything else was on there. So you needed the date and hour, name, but I put my folks on there. And I don't think Genesee put daughter of on her announcements. I thought that was kind of
I don't
unusual.
remember.
I thought of that, but yeah, I was in Las Cruces doing my thing. He was doing his thing, and you don't make any money running around, and so he did his.
Just in make money and save money mode.
Yes.
I never realized that until just now.
Yep, that was just those 3 months, June, July, and August, and then we were married in September, and that's a 6-hour drive to Mesa.
Yeah.
From Las Cruces.
Yeah.
So
we've done it a billion times. All of
Yes,
us
you
together.
have.
We have, yeah.
Yes, you have.
Those were our stopping points. We have one grandma there, one grandma here. That's where we stop.
San Antonio,
Yep.
9 hours.
Yeah. And so Dad wanted you to talk about when you drove down from Arizona. What car was it?
That he had a big
Soon to be
Fairlane.
weight.
Oh,
it was a Ford
convertible.
Fairlane? Oh, it was a convertible.
It was.
Oh.
And a gorgeous green, and they had put a new engine in it or something. And he had a buddy that was a mechanic or a paint person, and maybe both. And the engine went out in Wickenburg or somewhere around there as we were headed back to school after being in Lordsburg for a get-together. So we were back to Lordsburg and not Las Cruces. And that was after our wedding. So we stopped in Verdon, picked up a cake because there was a cake decorator friend, and then went to Hills, and then took off for Utah, and that's when the engine
That's when it broke down.
Yeah. And he towed it back with his dad's car.
From Wickenburg to Mesa? Or you just kept towed it all the way to Provo, I think. Dad was just telling us this story last night.
I think so, all the way to Provo.
That's so funny.
I don't know how we got around walking, I guess, for a while. Until and I don't remember any time. So it must have been fixed really soon after that.
And then you had a green Ford Fairlane.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Big, long one with the fins. And
Oh.
the year was, can't remember.
50-something. Well, we had a 56 when we were in San Antonio. We drove a Ford Fairlane. Jenny drove it into a few parked cars on our way to seminary. But we love that car because it wasn't big. So when you say it's big, it's all relative. It's a lot smaller than a 15-passenger van and a 1972 station wagon.
Yes.
Wood paneling.
Between a Volkswagen and a bus.
It's teeny. It's the smallest car we'd ever had.
Fairlane?
Yeah, we had a Ford Fairlane.
Oh, really?
Dad'll remember. He was in charge of the cars. It's okay, Mom.
Yes.
He's in charge of the cars.
He's done that.
Oh, it was
well.
a 57. Oh, he
Kept
said it
us
right
all
here.
on wheels forever and ever.
Forever and ever
Still
and
does
ever.
a good job.
Yeah. How did you get back to your first home in Provo? Not sure what is this Dad's
that's
questions.
when we were
That's the same
headed.
thing. Okay.
That was the same trip.
I want to make sure I covered it all.
Back to Provo.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And we had two guys that rented our extra bedroom. And I was ironing shirts for them and somebody else down the street. And we had Thanksgiving together with a number of Benny's friends. Our two roomers, and then Thanksgiving, people go home, but we did have our two that were renting, Haas and, should be able to think of the other name, but that was our first Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm. And then tell us about your first Christmas.
That was delightful. Ben got some money from Connell's that he'd worked for, and that was Christmas Eve afternoon, and I don't know how much money we spent, but more money than we had in forever, and we bought a few gifts for each.
That day?
Home.
On Christmas Eve?
Because the stores were closing at 9 o'clock, but the drugstore was open, had a hairdryer and some fuzzy pink slippers. And I don't even remember, but we do have the picture that Ben bought that's still hanging in my bathroom
Yes.
of the canals in Venice.
Yes.
And that was a big item, and my folks gave us an electric fry pan. I'm not even sure now.
Oh, electric frying pan.
And some canisters from the Knutsens. And we had a tree from the kids that went home from school for Christmas. They had it in Heritage Halls. So we hauled the tree over. I don't know where we got lights. We must have had a few of our own. But it was very nice. Just a nice Christmas. I don't remember specifically what we did in the afternoon, or if we went for a ride or just crashed as college kids. We were both going to school full time, and I was working at the hospital, and Ben was doing dance jobs still, and this was the end of December, so yeah, I don't remember what we did, especially we didn't have any guests over on Christmas.
Most people were probably home.
Yes.
Most people leave, yeah.
Own way. I guess even Haas wasn't there.
Were you working and going to school? Did you have a job
At
while
the
you were going to
hospital.
school? Oh, that's when you were at the hospital. Yeah. Summer of 61, when you took Mike home to Las Cruces?
Mike was
No, he was not.
born
You were pregnant with.
after, yes.
Yeah, he was 62.
Yes. Ben went off to camp in Washington, ROTC camp, and I got the Greyhound bus and came down to Las Cruces and stayed for a couple of weeks before he got through with his camp, and then we drove up to Farmington after spending a little time in Las Cruces, and then up to Farmington for his, that was before his birthday. It was our anniversary.
Yeah.
We celebrated at the airport. They had a dance band there, and we went with
Cool.
Joyce and Knudsen. Arnold.
Oh, Arnold.
Yes, the father of the six.
Right.
and then drove all the way in our new Corvair to Washington, D.C. and looked for apartments. Wow. And spent one night in the apartment and then headed for the hospital
Wow.
in Maryland.
Oh, you barely made it there.
Yes, we had been in the BOQ.
Well, that makes sense. He's October 5. No, 2.
2.
2.
Yes.
It's October 2nd.
Yes, and Ben's birthday was celebrated in the BOQ.
19.
Yes. So we were there for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Before we found the apartment on the 3rd floor
Huh.
on Oakwood Drive. That's not quite right either, but it was real close to the Potomac River. And so that was our first home. I think we paid $60
Wow.
for rent. And it had parquet floors. I don't know if that was just kind of there were strips made into a square of maple, maybe. And so it was squares that made the floor kind of interesting. It was nice. I liked it a lot. And a teeny little kitchen that worked just fine. And Ben built a great pizza top wood block top with some shelves, one shelf underneath. Chris has this piece of furniture.
Oh, really?
Yes. The last time I knew she did, when she was headed for Indiana, which made some more space and a nice work area just between the sink and because that's how wide it was, just the sink and this great table over there. But that was a nice place to live, again, on the 3rd floor. And when it was icy, and Washington has horrible ice storms, Your car was parked down 2 blocks, and we didn't have a place to park. And Ben had to chip the ice off and to get to Bowling Air Force Base. And he was working out at, I think of their name once in a while too, a music studio in a double wide trailer. His name, can't remember. But they needed a piano teacher. And this was after Mike was about a year old. So it was about a year later that I started working with piano students. But I went to their house, 2 or 3. And
Take Mike with you?
No, not then. Betty lived down the street, and she would watch him for a couple of hours, and it wouldn't be very long. And she was a 12-year-old living with her mom that got stabbed one night coming up. So, and the neighborhood is not what it used to be, but there were some military kids, didn't really know them and didn't ever get very involved with them at all. But we had a new baby, and the laundry was in the basement. We lived on the 3rd floor. That's kind of a funny formula, but
weird. Again, different apartment in the same situation.
But we had ward support. It was awesome.
Wow. Well, it's so funny because sometimes when I'm looking at the questions, we just talked about it, and then I look at this. Sober.
Because I've wandered.
Yeah. It's just, what is it? Just, he wanted you to just talk about being an Air Force spouse. Like, what do you think the pros and cons are? Because, you obviously, we've talked about this. You loved your life.
Yes. Thank you.
I want to make sure we can hear what you say. And what is it like? I mean, how would you describe it to somebody who, I don't know, doesn't know what the Air Force is all about or what that life is like? Or the pros and cons? Or
well,
any stories or anything?
It was a good income. And for the most part, it was working with good people for Benny's part. And I wasn't, again, I was home with my baby. And and I didn't ever have any other kind of life to compare it with. But he goes to work and comes home at night. And we were really close to Bowling for that part. Our apartment building was really close to Bowling Air Force Base. Or was that across the river? Was that a bridge? I don't know, but we went, Ben did some work on a 15-foot boat, and this is not exactly what you were asking, I know.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
But we kept it in the small marina down on the Potomac River, and we bought some water skis, and I don't remember the horsepower on this, but we learned to water ski, and that was great entertainment, and we would take Betty and Mike with us and put Mike in the playpen, and Betty would just stay and play with her on the shore of the Potomac River, and we just went back and forth in front of them with our water skis, and that was...
Wow.
That was entertaining.
That's cool.
We just entertained ourselves, and the ward was very good and had some military people in it, and we had ward callings and New Year's party, and with real dishes, mind you. I have washed a few dishes and silverware, and we don't do that one anymore. And the prep was a whole lot different. We get Costco, and but we actually made everything that we cooked and brought it to the old building in Washington that we met at.
When you first started having children, did you ever wish you lived by Granny? Like, did you miss not being around your mom or your parents, or want to go home, or did that bother you?
It would have been very nice to have any kind of family around. But then military wives usually didn't.
Right.
And not that I was really closely associated with any of them, except in the ward. And the Slacks were in the Navy. Can't even think of her name. And were they Navy too? But our ward was very military, and that was the wives that I associated with. And yes, it would have been very nice to have family. But again, what can you do about it?
Mm-mm.
So we went home once a year when we had 30-day leave. And Mike was how big when we came home from... Well, we were only there for a year.
Jersey?
Because...
Or D.C.?
In D.C. We went to Illinois 9 months before Bruce was born, so that was only a year and a half, almost 2 years in Washington. It was almost 2 years. No, that's not quite right. Because Mike was walking, and I was... pregnant with Bruce, and they're 2 years apart anyway. 18 months maybe in Washington, but not that long. But that was the whole story, is that you just enjoy what's there and know you're going to go move.
Yeah.
Don't try to put down a whole lot of roots. There weren't roots to be had.
Right. And then do you think that's a big reason why you ended up going to Las Cruces after your husband dragging you all over the world for 35 years?
Well, we had some land.
But you had bought that before, but did you want to, because Granny and Pa were there? Or?
Yes.
Yes.
That's why we were there, and they were getting up in years, and Ben did have a job there, and we had that land. All those pecan trees were already growing. So cool. And the fruit trees, so that was home. Yeah. And for a couple of summers before we moved there, Ben was getting his grove going.
Do you remember Granny telling you that she had 6 months to live?
No.
She never told anybody?
She went in for surgery for some growths on her, and they weren't huge. I did see them on her neck, that muscle that kind of goes down to your shoulder. And they said, yes, they are cancerous, and no, that's not the primary source. They could not find it. It was hiding behind a kidney. And so they didn't know where it was, but and at her age, they would not do surgery.
No.
So major, even if they had found it, but they didn't find it until a few months later. And I guess it just showed up in an MRI. Don't know. I don't remember exactly, but but she knew because these were cancers, and there was a major source someplace else. It was just a matter of. And she had a really nice oncologist that she adored that just kind of helped her along. That she didn't do anything really, but she was encouraging, and you could tell that Mama really appreciated her. Just an oncologist. I don't know that she was in a clinic especially, but and I never met her, but you could tell the way Mama talked about it that she felt like she was in good hands, and they had already made all of their funeral arrangements. They had their plots and their headstones. And so it was, they were way up there. She was just short of 90.
Yeah. And so she never just came out and told you, so I got cancer and it's whatever. She never said anything?
Not really.
That's where you get it from.
Well, yeah. What do you say?
I don't know.
I'm dying of cancer. I don't know when it's going to get me.
Well, that's what everybody else does. I always joke to people that I know. I said my mom could have stage 17 cancer, and you'd never know it, and she would never tell us.
And so
that's what your mom did. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
She's just whatever.
That was really hard on Daddy, of course.
I know.
And he was ready to go after that. He did
6 months.
Good job.
Yeah, he
did.
lasted 6
And
months.
Sam was there. He was driving them to appointments and taking care of things because Mama drove way up
to the end.
there. But then with Sam there, he did it for them.
Yeah.
He was so good with taking care of them. And I wish he would get some help.
I know. Me too. I was going to email him today. I've been thinking about him a lot lately.
Great.
Because you're here.
You're a good connection.
I wonder how he is. And then Pa, I always tell everybody, I don't think he had any diagnosis. He just died of a broken heart. Did he actually die of something? He just said, I don't want to live anymore. I looked at her and said, now what am I going to do? And that's it. I don't want to be here without her.
Out.
Yeah.
Just chugging along as only 97-year-olds can do, and you couldn't do anything else. And he tried to help with the housework a little bit, but he couldn't drive, and he couldn't read because he had macular degeneration. And he had a pretty fancy setup with a big magnifying glass, and he could watch some TV, and he liked to watch sports on TV. And
Lawrence Welk.
And
9,000 decibels.
Yeah. Oh, yes. We got to crank that up a bit. Well, his hearing was pretty shot, and when you can't see or hear or get around, hey, it's time to
call it a life.
Yep.
It's such a good one.
They did it very well.
Yeah, they're amazing.
The two of them. Yes, they were.
It's such a good example. Speaking of what legacy you want to leave behind, they left the same one. They loved each other so much.
Yes, they did. And they were very smart about just taking care of what needed to be taken care of, and they had the money to do it. If you've got a comfortable income, and you don't have to be super rich, but if you're feeling comfortable with your financials, you're okay.
Yeah,
it's when you're struggling way up into your 90s and you've already struggled all your life. No, they did well in every respect.
Because I remember you calling me and saying, Granny's not going to live much longer. And so I went in to visit her one more time. And so you just knew it. You just could tell she was deteriorating and just wasn't going to be very much longer. I think she died a month later. So I just got to go. I just went over and visited her one more time, which was fun.
So she died in March, April, May, June, July. She died in August. So it was that summer.
Oh, yeah.
That you came. And we were on a trip to Palmyra and the Sacred Grove and the Nabu Temple.
All that,
And when the call came.
Oh, that's right.
And when we were leaving town, the day before we caught our plane to fly out there, I don't even remember what airport we went to. She was napping when I went by. I didn't want to wake her. But then I didn't. That was the last time I saw her. So she was napping. And it was just one of those things you knew was going to happen, and you brace yourself, and it's always a horrible loss, no matter what. Always.
What about the last time you saw Pa?
I saw him a few days before he really went into kind of a coma. And it just old age. He was worn out. And we kind of chatted a little bit about things in general. And I should have been a whole lot more um, complimentary of all the things that he had done, because he was not a bragger at all. But he did so well in so many things, and I should have made a list and been more supportive then. But he kind of went into a coma, and Sam had a monitor in his room, and you could tell there was a change in the breathing, which happens.
That's
and
it, yep.
so, and he knew, and everybody knew. Becky was there, and I was there. Myrna was there, and I think Pam was also there. Mama went walking with her cane in her garden shortly before she died with Pam. And I, but she knew exactly where things were, and that was just kind of a final goodbye. And her gardening, it kept her alive. It was something to do. It was growing things. It was, everybody else could appreciate it. She appreciated it, and that was a huge thing that she could do up to the almost the last minute.
Day. Wow. So you were in the house when Pa died?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And he, when Sam called, he waited a little while, and he was being so businesslike about it. But he was in a coma, you know. There wasn't. But he told them, "Look, I don't need a fire engine and the whole big ceremony.
Right.
My dad is 87 years old. He has been dying for several
97.
days. But he was not on, 90. He was not on hospice. Mama was. And if you're on hospice, there's just a whole lot of things that are taken care of because they're aware that he's been dying for.
Yeah.
And Mama was, and that worked out a whole lot smoother. And so Sam could have done that one a little better, but he told them, look, he's been dead for about an hour, and he's been dying for a few weeks. Not really that, but the last couple of weeks. And so I'm just telling you. And so they inspect the body for
homicide.
Injections, I think, is what they're looking for.
Oh, jeez. Leave him alone. Just let him die.
That was.
Who cares?
So they did that, and yes, I was there, and.
Oh my gosh! I can't believe they checked the body. Like, who do you think you guys are? And what are they going to do? What if you gave him an injection? Oh my gosh!
Well,
and what?
Or
He's literally
wounds,
dead.
Yeah.
He's already dying.
Yeah, if he's gone,
Our society is so
gone,
stupid.
But then they have to fill out their papers.
Oh, brother.
So to say that they knew that there wasn't any foul play, and
It's illegal to die at home now. Give me a
yes,
break.
It is.
Give me a break.
With that,
It is.
it was.
At the monitor?
He was
What about the
listening
monitor?
to the monitor.
Oh.
Sam was. And I think he must have got the monitor from Becky. Maybe Becky had one for her kids, but Becky, that was so hard for my folks to die, for Becky and for Chris and Rachel. I think dying is part of the deal.
I know.
And it's time, but they were so into Rachel and Kristen's lives. They would come back from seminary and grab a bowl of cereal and chat with Mama, because she was up reading the paper. That's another thing people don't do anymore. But she would go out and get the paper. And one time she said, and she always checked on the moon, because often that's a nice time to see the moon at 6 o'clock in the morning. But she said, and there were 2 moons up in the sky. And then I realized that I had Howard's glasses on. that just sounds like a Pearl Hunt story.
Hilarious. They were always laughing.
Yes, she knew, and her mama did too. My granny Emmy raised her kids out there on the flat, but there are stories to be told of these good old people that different breed back then, and they knew. how to do it. But anyway, that
So Pa, and who was on the monitor and what were they listening to? I'm confused about the monitor
there
thing.
was a baby monitor, and the speaker, and it was not a very sophisticated one like they have now, but there was one there, so you could hear him because it was in the kitchen. So we were listening to the breathing as it changed, and we were listening to the inspectors. I wasn't, because I don't remember anything that they said, really, but they do have official papers to fill out when there's a death. So they did their thing. I don't remember them putting him on a gurney and hauling him out to the ambulance. Or did the morgue send over? I don't remember those details. That's weird. But yep, they did it well. Their last years were well done, and thanks to Sam. And I've tried to make that how much we appreciate him as a family for what he did for the folks. And everybody has been very gracious. And he spoke at the funeral for Pa. And I thought it was so fun that Ree was in town, of course. And I said, do you want to help us? And why do I remember this so well when I don't remember some other obvious things? We had a big styrofoam top of the casket to put all kinds of flowers in that was saved from Mama's funeral. And, they just put a big pile of it in styrofoam. And we had that, and Mama's flowers were gorgeous. He died in November, December, January, February, March, April. It was April. And so I asked Ree if she would like to help put the flowers on. And Ree was kind of out of town and detached after her divorce from the father of her 6 kids and then marrying Cloyd. A little bit detached. So I wanted to include her, and Pam has always wanted to include her. And I was the bossy one that was there trying to get the flowers done for the casket. And she said yes, she would like to help with that. But she was kind of late. But we started it. But we just got the nicest arrangement that you could ever see. But the greenery on the bottom and all the different flowers that were growing in Mama's garden. That was the best part. They were coming from Mama's garden.
Who cut them?
We all did.
You did?
I think we just kind of went out and got a big pile of possibilities, and there it was, and let's put it together. And we were all there. Sam wasn't involved in the flowers, but he did take care of a whole lot of other stuff.
Everything.
Yes. But we did the flowers, and it was a very nice service.
It was.
And we were so glad that he found his mama again, or a lot of people, but Pearl Lunt.
Yeah.
And that was so
they
hard
could be together
for him to see her hauled out to the door. I wasn't there. Myrna was. I was on the other side of the world in Nauvoo when Mama died. And I think she just kind of gave up. There wasn't any big scene. And the hospice was taking care of her. And interesting how you leave this life and you know it's inevitable. And again, the loss is so real. And you deal with it.
Sad still.
And there are some people that hang on to that.
Yeah.
Forever. And you wonder, was there some unfinished business that they really wish they had taken care of? And is that why they keep hanging on to somebody that is relieved from this mortality? Hallelujah.
Do you think it's probably your religious beliefs and your convictions that has to be the biggest reason? You're just it's see you later and not see you never.
Exactly.
right? I mean, that has to be part of it.
We were sealed as a family. We will be sealed as a family into the eternities. And I was there for that sealing because I was in high school. I figured out at one time how old I was. Something like 13, I guess. I can't remember exactly, but in the temple, they went for their sealing. 6 hours over to Mesa Temple. And it's just so amazing that we have temples right next door. I can't even remember what the 16 new temples were announced, and it's over 100. I can't remember the number now that are either being used right now, but there's a couple that are closed for renovation, but the new ones are just popping up everywhere. And for us to have one so close to us is just such a blessing. We don't even have to go over to American Fork, which is so close. But going to Albuquerque was a 3-hour jaunt, and yes, you could go across to Juarez, but that was a good hour. And crossing the border is not always something people want to do. Period.
No.
And we didn't.
Well, we used to do it all the time, but I wouldn't do it now.
Yes,
It's different.
50 years ago. And that big La Fiesta Club has been closed down. And I checked on it one time to see when it was closed down. But that was a great place for entertainers to come. And good food. And just over the border from El Paso. I've been there once. But the border's not the same.
It's just dangerous.
Any place else. And
is there anything else that you would like to do or see or experience before you go join your mom and dad?
What's my bucket list?
Yeah, I'm sure you'll outlive us all. So I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But
if it did,
is there anything?
Hallelujah!
You wouldn't care.
Oh no, I don't have a bucket list. Period. From day to day, I figure if I need to
make it to bedtime.
Yes.
That's your goal, your daily goal.
The fruit needs to be thinned out on our trees, and but I don't have any goals of a place to go or a place to do. I just don't.
You've already seen it all.
Effort. I've seen a lot, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
And staying home, and I take care of my piano students. It's nothing great. Have a little choir that sings for my primary kids, and that's nothing great. I enjoy playing the.
Is it really falling down?
I was afraid to turn this of it. Just
okay.
So
just don't touch it.
Okay. I bet. Yes.
You can move. Don't have to hold it up.
I need to get up and walk around too.
I know we're almost done.
No, I have no bucket list whatsoever.
Seems so content.
Ever.
You like your plants, and you take care of your husband, and you take care of your piano lessons, and you take care of
neighbors,
anybody who needs anything.
Just have some really sweet people that I adore. And a couple of weeks ago, Ben had mowed the front lawn, part of the front lawn. Now I wasn't even sure he was doing it, and my student came in, Dawson came in, but his brother, who was my next piano student, said, "Hey, I got some time. I'll mow the rest of the lawn." And the lawnmower was out there, and so I heard the mower crank up again, and I got a glass of ice water and went out to give it to Benny, and it was Damon. Well, actually, it was his mom, Kim, was pushing the lawnmower back and forth. Well, they were trading. She would make a trip. He would make a trip. And they're both in good shape. They're young. They're darling people, and I just adore them. And they are so on time and been so supportive of everything that I was her counselor in primary at one time, and she's just a dear. It was right after COVID, and we were opening up primary, and I hadn't been in primary when things had changed, but things like that happen a lot. So when you hear your lawnmower cranked up, you don't know who's out there doing your well. And we went to the temple on our Tuesday morning and came back, and our grass was really quite high, and it looked great. Somebody had mowed the whole front.
No way.
And so I had a really good time calling several people, accusing them of this wonderful deed, and thank you so much. That's something that you would do. And found out that it was my very next door neighbor who's a truck driver, and he mows his lawn regularly. So he just came on, a few more feet. It wasn't that big a deal. And how did I accused his son Joel of mowing my lawn. But it was fun just because that's the kind of people they are. So so many people have done so many kind things that I guess I called about 6 people. I didn't call them. I texted them. But then the calls came back and said, nope, it wasn't us. But the Glausers have mowed our lawn before, and the Petersons have just been really helpful.
Wow. So cool.
But that was just kind of a fun thing. I've got a kid that's coming over. He's kind of a misfit. He likes acrylic nails. He is not gay. He just happens to like acrylic nails. So my gloves didn't fit very well.
Okay.
Just kind of funny. And his name is Charles, and he is going to graduate, but he's going to a special school for kids with problems, and has a shrink that keeps really good track of him. It's a very small group. Lifeline is the name of the school in Salt Lake. He catches the train early morning, comes back late, and anyway, that's just another person. But he is going to come over and keep our little plants from drying up. We've got a few in the wheelbarrow. It won't. It's not supposed to freeze anymore. So we'll see about that. But there's always something. You water plants. I feed my birds. I feed my cat that I'm going to get tamed someday. And it's just, you just do a few things that you want to do, and then you got to run the vacuum and clean up the bathroom and do a little laundry, and so that gets done eventually. I have someone to take care of me completely, and I always have. So
you take care of each other.
Yes. And when the time comes, there is a Heavenly Father waiting for us on the other side, and that's a good thing.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, it will be. And Mama and Daddy will be there, and a whole lot of other good people, and Ron's one of them that has recently show us around. He's kind of a newcomer there. But
Nyona, she won't be in pain anymore?
No.
She'll be dancing around.
And her hips are all fixed.
Hips are fixed and perfect.
Anything that needs to be fixed is fixed. That just is great.
So amazing. Thank you so much, Mom. This has been so
It's
great.
been nice visiting with you,
So
always.
And then you start talking, and then I have more questions, and then I have other things that come to mind, and I love this. I could do another 8 hours, and I'd love for you to tell all the stories of Granny's, like all the stories that you know about your mom's family too. But we'll do it.
But
we'll just do it again.
Their music on the weekends kept those ranchers alive. They would bring their guitar in there, and they still do. They still do it. And their fiddle, and they dance a little bit, or all night long, and music.
Yeah.
Gardening. Just taking care of stuff that you can, and that don't worry about the stuff that you can't.
Right. Amen.
Amen.
Love you, Mom.
Love you too, honey.
Thank you for being here and listening to my show. If you got any value at all, it would mean the world if you shared it and left a review. Remember, the only way to create the life you love is to take it one day at a time. Create today. God bless you.